All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. I am Joe Danier, your host. And today, and always, we get to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and small business. So those of you in the audience, if you're considering or, you've been playing around with the idea that you get out of the marketplace and start exercising some of these ideas, this is sort of like a little breeding ground, a little incubator for those ideas. And we're very optimistic. We're advocates for business. So we believe that you can do it. And honestly, we need more of you out there trying. And, in a world where we're consolidating all of this market power into, bigger and bigger corporations, which means that there are less consumers on a regular basis. So we need to break those consumers off, give them more choices, allow small businesses to innovate and compete, and spread it around a little bit. A lot of that money that drains out of our community and goes to other states and other countries is because we're on this pursuit of fetching, goods through centralized sources rather than spread out over smaller enterprises. And so that's what I advocate with you today. And we give you a space to be able to, it's multifaceted, but I would say in the beginning parts is where ideas are most vulnerable because you have a lot of belief in them. There hasn't been many people that I didn't sit down with that didn't have some kind of idea. Some of them terrible ideas. Some of them just I didn't have a whole lot of belief in, right? But the practice of hatching an idea means that in the beginning, you're going to come up with things that you are familiar with, right? That you have experience in. And even if they don't have a lot of, probability of success, the process should always be the same. The practice should be the same. Where take that idea, no matter if you're how serious or not of a chance that it has, go through the motions of it. Because in that practice, I would rather learn the mechanics of business in T-ball than when I'm desperate and I'm in the major leagues, right? And so use that and encourage that. And especially in kids, when I speak at schools and we talk about, brain chemistry and mental hacking and all of that kind of stuff, I get a line of kids when they know that I'm an entrepreneur and do business. I get a line of kids saying, I want to start a business. It's never not happened that I didn't have kids that wanted to pick my brain. And I'm thinking, man, there's a huge demand for people that just need a little bit of mentorship, a little bit of encouragement to get started. And I spend time, and I don't end up talking much about what I just spoke on the stage. I spend up most of my time talking about businesses and their ideas. And it's amazing. It's one of my favorite things of doing public speaking is the interactions after the shows with those people who were in the audience. And so I'm going to do a little bit of storytelling. And a lot of times you think of, business and entrepreneurship sometimes it's a little bit of a, I don't know, it's an intimidating prospect, and it's not as hard as it seems. Now, if you just eyeball where other people are at and you pick companies that are gargantuan and fully developed and 30 years in the making, it's harder to sort of like put you through that perspective, like put you, and you don't connect with that very well. But if you look at a bakery that's down the street, single operator, cash register, and an oven, that's more like all that stuff's accessible in your world. You have access to that. I remember I was driving by NASA. We were touring the NASA facility down in Florida. And I was looking up at the buildings and I was looking at the infrastructure. And I was like, of all of this stuff, like I couldn't build a NASA. I couldn't build aeronautics, a flight path. I couldn't do runways. And I was trying to pick out something in that whole landscape that I could afford. And I looked at this little red door that was at the bottom of one of the buildings, and it was like a steel door. And I'm like, that's a door. And I probably couldn't afford that door. And so like when I dream super big, which I love, encourage people to do that and dream big, I always also have to go and look at stuff that I can do, right? Pick a best practice or somebody who's doing something that you really could see yourself in, where you can afford all the apparatus, you can afford all the materials, you have enough money in your bank account right now that you could do that thing, you have the time that they have, and then you're like, yeah, you know what? That's a good starting spot. And I'm going to do a little storytelling today because I want you, and people who've listened to my programs for years might have heard some of these, but all of you new listeners probably, have not. And so I've probably started at least a dozen businesses since I graduated from high school. I knew I was an entrepreneur in school. I did all the traditional stuff, lemonade stands, bike shops. We even put on a circus, invited all the neighborhood and put on acts and whatever. But it always interested me to be able to convert some of my time into some kind of product. So I never had an employee's brain ever. And one of the first steps of engaging with entrepreneurships is you almost have to take your worker brain and you have to put it on the shelf, and you have to develop an entrepreneur brain. And there's a lot of cliches that are built into that that translate or that transfer. And so I want to tell you what the difference is. Like, we get super preoccupied with the parity trading of our time for value, right? I go to work, I work an 8-hour day, there's a paycheck at the end, and I trade my time for that paycheck. I know what I'm willing to do. I know what I'm not willing to do. I have these very clear defined boundaries of what I'm willing to invest. Now, when it's your own thing, you can scrap those boundaries. You don't have to go into prevent defense. And you hear a lot of entrepreneurs for the first 2 years of working, they draw $0 out of their company. And as the worker brain kind of explodes, like, so you worked 8 hours a day. No, I work 12 hours a day. You work 5 days a week. No, I was kind of doing 7 days a week. And you did that for multiple years. And it did not just give you a paycheck. How did you justify showing up every day? Well, the entrepreneur brain has to play a long game, right? They have to be picturing the 3-year or the 4-year and what it's going to end up being, and never lose the hunger. So we're kind of impulsive, right? So we're looking in the next 30 days. Well, the entrepreneur's looking in the next decade. And so they're buying their way to what's going to be in 10 years and keeping themselves self-motivated. That's why I say a lot of times this is a single player game, because you can't share your current struggle with other people's struggle, because number one, they would disagree with you and say, hey, you got to cut that out. I mean, you can't go out with us. You can't go on vacations. You can't do all the fun stuff. Like, what are you doing? I had one of the guys that got in business about a week before I did. And he was talking to an accountant. So I had an accountant that was just a traditional accountant. So they didn't have much experience with entrepreneurs. And they also had an accountant, but they were more geared towards entrepreneurs. Well, my accountant constantly would tell me, you got to make less money. You're paying too much in taxes. You got to make less money. And it never occurred. Like, the goal in my profession was to make more money. And the accountant all saw was the amount I was paying in taxes. Now, my peer, they were saying, hey, this money, you might as well go get a job. And they were trying to convince them to pull out of the whole doing it on their own and go get a job somewhere, because you could make way more money with less hours spent. And he defended against it, and he decided not to take the advice of his accountant. And I defended against mine and decided, so not only will you get the pressures and the stresses of doing out of the box and going off in left field on your own, you're going to get really terrible advice from the people around you that are trying to protect you. They're trying to give you sage advice if you are typical, but they're giving you worker advice. They're giving you traditional thought advice. And that's something you got to break those boundaries down and start, not feeling somehow insulted by the market if it doesn't immediately reward you on your actions in the first 30 days that you do something, right? You got to be able to create metrics that say, my actual success for the first month is to grow the operations, not my bank account. And so if you take every penny that goes in, you look at the end of the day and see what you've built, you might have added 4 customers and it cost you $6,000, right? You got to be able to find a way to say, would I buy customers at $2,000 a piece if I could? Yeah. Like, one of the most valuable parts of business is your customer base, and people sell customer bases for big money all the time. And so changing that framing and finding what's valuable outside of just what you put in your bank account, because in typical fashion, starting a business is very on the lean side for many years. And if it weren't for a supportive family, and I think that's why, sort of like I'm a big proponent of traditional families, and because the support that I got from my wife and having a solid foundation when I went home at night and supportive people around me, it gave me some liberties that, let's just say I didn't have that. There's no way I could have made it. So it's super important you surround yourself by people who will give the advice, but allow you to kind of do your own thing. And, through the process, I was a big book reader. I read every business book imaginable. And there's no like Bible of business. And I know there's a lot of books that say that they are, but I'm a sampler. Well, I will read a book and I will take nuggets out of everything that I've ever read and I assemble them and make them my own. And so, excuse me, I recommend that you don't single element. You don't pick a mentor and do everything that they do. Grab something, improve what you're doing based on what their experiences are, and use many sources, because I meet people all the time. I think the first instance of this is there was a guy that was super flashy. We got in business the same time that I did. I was doing nothing because I was investing all the money back into the company, and he was had an entourage and going around flashing it, and he got all the notoriety, and I was kind of a little bit jealous of that, sitting back thinking like, what am I doing wrong here? I was comparing myself towards what, maybe I should go flashy cars and flashy clothes and entourage too. Maybe that's how you get respect in the marketplace. And my brain halfway considered it for a minute. And I was like, I think mine's more dependable. My spreadsheet says that it's going to go differently, but I always was curious at how they pulled it off. Well, that only lasted about a year. And then that guy went away forever, never came back from that. So, I was patient enough to know that I shouldn't do that. And then I had the evidence after the fact that wasn't a lasting plan to begin with. And so, very thankful I let my reasonable mind, have control. I'm gonna do a little bit more storytelling. So I after I got through high school, right out of high school, I worked for a internet service provider. This is back in dial-up days. Best Buy picked a local company. It was called the On-Ramp. And my wife knew somebody, got me a job there, and I was doing technical support. So somebody trying to get online, they couldn't do it. Computers were trash at the time. And I was a creative mind, and they taught me like 1,000 different ways to get a 62-year-old that's barely touched a mouse to be able to get a modem that was misfiring fixed and then get online. So it wasn't just a matter of log in and hit connect and then you're on. It was when they were getting to me, I almost had to fix their computer while I was on the phone with them. So I got super good at, because remember, the remote support wasn't there. So I had to do this verbally with people where I give them, physical instructions on how to fix their computer, it's not an easy undertaking. It takes a special skill set. Let's see. And then, so the On-Ramp, they went bust, and I picked a local computer company called Community Computing. And if you remember Jason Sullivan out in the Youngstown, he was a local Youngstown entrepreneur, had Community Computing over in Girard. I started working for him. This was back in the Pentium 200 days. And it was early on. And greatest thing about working for that company is that he was a brilliant mind. He was a savant's mind. And he had these great big ideas, and we would sit and spend, hours talking about the marketplace and what should be invented, and an appreciation for all of the, those technological advances that were happening. And it was great. I got really good sampling of someone who was thinking a little bit bigger, the Girard, Ohio, Mahoning County, or even Ohio, bigger dreams. Not that, it's a safe place to dream outside of your local, your local community there. And I felt a little bit safer dreaming a little bit bigger. And that ended up he ended up going bust, and I think he went bust. I'm not sure. But anyway, I started my own company, and I was sitting around playing video games, and I was spending 2 or 3 hours a day playing these games where you play other players. I got a little disappointed of how much time I was investing. So I was in front of the computer anyway. So I grabbed an HTML book, and I read this thing from cover to cover, and I was just enthralled by programming. Programming basic and HTML was just like my favorite thing to do as a hobby. And so I started building web pages, and I got to the shopping cart, and shopping carts were new at the time. And so I started programming a shopping cart, and these things start clicking in my head that hey, I can let people buy stuff and use the internet to be able to do it. I'm going to interrupt the story. We are going to take a break, and I'm going to come right back to it. I'll remind myself I was talking about the shopping cart when we be back. This is the Bottom Line Business Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
It's time to save with GM employee pricing to the public on all remaining 2023 vehicles at the Stadium GM Superstore. This means you can save up to $12,000 on select models. Plus, we've got some great lease deals. You can choose from a new 24 Chevy Equinox LT or a new 24 Buick Encore GX from only $289 a month. Stop in today or log on to stadiumgm.com for GM employee pricing to the public at the locally owned Stadium GM Superstore in Salem. Together, let's drive. See dealer for complete details.
We've got a crisis at the border, the Ohio border. I see kids in my practice dropping like flies due to drugs. Don't think it can't happen to your kid too. If you want to stop eating junk food, stop bringing it in the house. The first step to drug prevention is to stop bringing it here. Join me, Dr. Rick Chai, and let's close our southern borders. Let's finish the wall and get back to legal immigration. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-509-8536. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-509-8536. That's 800-509-8536. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. I'm giving you a little bit of a story. Those who are just joining us, giving you a little bit of the history, because we're talking about the origin stories, the beginnings of creating the mentality that is that is congruent with entrepreneurship. And I left off with I read a cover to cover an HTML book. I started getting into understanding how to write a shopping cart, the coding to be able to buy products, make sales, and process credit card transactions or some ACH transactions. This was probably 1998 is where I would probably place this. And so I learned. I wrote this little prototype up, a little shopping cart. And I took my butt down and I started driving around the city of Girard. I stopped at every business down on 422 in Girard. And I said, hey, can I talk to the owner? And I said, would you be interested in taking a couple of products out of your store, letting me try to sell it to the internet, people on the internet, and then I'll help you facilitate the sales. And then you can ship those products out to people who buy them. And I sat there thinking like, they were like, whoa. Sign me up. Like, what? I didn't get a single person that knew what this even I was talking about, because this was like everybody was on AOL at the time. You only did your shopping through AOL. So what's this Netscape or Internet Explorer thing that you keep referring to? And it was zero demand for what I was selling. It's a hard sell, right? And so I started the company. It was called NICN, National Internet Commerce Network. And I continue, even after my first day of not getting anybody to sign up, I still went out or I still went back and I continued coding. And I was like, okay, well, let's do this. Let's make this into like a shopping mall where all I'm doing is I'm aggregating other people's products that are selling and linking people. So if they're looking for something specific, I'll just make a little cart and I'll say, like, let's just say you go down and get somebody who's selling I don't know, boxes of cereal, bad example, but boxes of cereal, and they're selling them online. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to start pushing people to buy through my NICN store, and I'll push them out to your site to make the purchase. Can I get some affiliate commissions on any sales that I send, like pennies, 2 pennies, whatever. And I'll just try to send you a bunch of business. I'll go and market it so that people come to the store, and it's the product I'll put together is maybe in some kind of vein of interest and whatever. And again, I went out to the marketplace. 0 people were interested in what I was selling, but my brain was going, right? And so I got to maybe the 3-month mark, and I had made 0 sales. I had a working prototype. I had nobody interested in. So I had to decide, well, either I'm going to become an online retailer and I'm just going to buy products and then sell in my own store because I had the infrastructure, or I needed to make some money. I was out of cash flow. And so I got a job in the retail side, and I started a company called NICN Computers. And I had like no customers at the time. I was a brand new baby business. So I was working the retail job as part-time, and I was using it to buy inventory for the computer place, buy tools for the computer place, do a little bit of marketing for the computer place, working off of probably a $300 a week budget. I was investing everything right into that new company. And I got my first customer. Okay. And most of these were small batch, like really small. And so NICN over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years, no, it had to be less than 2 years, because 2000, I did it from 1998 to 2000. So 2 years worth. And I actually grew it up to the point where I was making a little bit of money. I was making enough to be able to retire the retail job and just do the NICN Computers full time. And I was working, an 8-hour day, maybe doing 2 or 3 appointments a day. And then I had a friend who I met through community computing who was also doing computers. I was like, hey, do you have any work that you can't get to? If you ever want to contract me, I'll work on your behalf. I'll wear your logo and whatever. And then I'll just pay you a wholesale rate and you can mark my time up. And he took the bait. He was like, yes. And so his name was Vince. And he gave me probably 80% of my workload came from contracted work with Vince. And then 20% was the stuff that I was still doing internally with the customers that I started to develop. Now, those of you just joining, I'm kind of giving you the primer for the struggle, the moves that I made as I started, orienting myself where I wanted to be. Still no money, reinvesting every penny into the enterprise, constantly trying to conjure up new opportunities, taking long odds shot and doing it with such persistence. Like I was doing things that probably wouldn't work and had a low odds of success, but I was doing it so often that every once in a while, one of them would take, and it would take off, and it would work out. And I watched a series of these where it was probably a 10-to-1 ratio. So it was like 90% of the things that I wanted to do or asked to do or tried to do fell flat, and 10% of them actually took root and became something. And it was a stepping stone every step of the way. Now, I've got 2 years invested in this at the point. And I would say at this point, this is still considered the beginning of my career, both in tech and as an entrepreneur, as I'm starting that first company. I did that for 2 years. And then some family things happened. A family member was sexually assaulted, and I helped her for almost an entire year. And I shut the company down while I was taking her through the courts and the trials and all that kind of stuff. And so after that year, I had a blank year from 2000 whatever to 2001. I had to sort of retool and restart, only from a very big negative cash position. When we come back from this break, I'll continue the story. You're listening to the Bottom Line Business Show on 570 WKBM.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Two men from Columbiana County have been arrested on charges related to child pornography investigations. Police arrested 34-year-old John Chaffin Jr. on charges of pandering obscenity involving a minor and drug paraphernalia. Police also arrested 63-year-old Barry Stevens for pandering obscenity involving a minor and illegal use of a minor in nudity-oriented materials. A Toledo man suspected in the January shooting death of his pregnant girlfriend turned himself in Thursday. Warrants had been issued for 35-year-old Paris James shortly after the shooting of 34-year-old Tamisha Price and her unborn daughter. 44-year-old Jonathan Bello has been indicted by a Trumbull County grand jury after a child predator sting operation led to his arrest last month. He's charged with attempted unlawful conduct with a minor, a fourth-degree felony, and attempted importuning. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 1. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, news, talk, and sports radio. Podcasts, too. Download the app. Free never sounded so good.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
Rain showers begin to wrap up heading into this afternoon. Expect scattered clouds around for your Saturday afternoon with high temperatures in the low 50s. Scattered clouds stick around overnight tonight as low temperatures fall into the upper 30s. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Keep your home warm this winter with new triple pane windows from Window Depot of Youngstown. During our New Year, New Home event, receive 75% off installation of a house full of new windows. Ask about 18 months, no interest. Plus, purchase new windows and receive a $200 Target gift card. Call 1-800-433-8577 for a free $25 Starbucks gift card with estimate. Call 1-800-433-8577. Certain restrictions apply. Call for details.
I'm Sheriff Jerry Green. On March 19th, you will have the opportunity to vote on Issue 1, the renewal of the criminal justice sales tax. This 3/4 of 1 penny sales tax is solely used to fund the sheriff's office, prosecutor, coroner, and dispatch. This is not an increase in your taxes. The stability of our criminal justice system and the safety of our neighborhoods and families is vital. Mahoning County deserves better than other communities that have defunded their police. Please vote yes on Issue 1. Paid for by FOP 141.
History is beautiful, brutal, and often ridiculous. Join me, Ben Bullitt,
and me, Noel Brown, as we dive into some of the strangest stories from across the span of human civilization in Ridiculous History.
Whether we're exploring the accidental invention of hold music,
or how people used to rent pineapples. Join us to hear the many ways history can be oh so ridiculous.
Listen to Ridiculous History on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you find your favorite podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. I am giving you sort of the origin story, a summary origin story of where I came up through some of the, new beginners. They have the timeline. They need a bead on the timeline of how long this takes and what you really have to go through and what the horror stories are like and what the payoffs could be. And so catching you up here, NICN Computers was underway. It was doing fairly well. 80% of my time was wholesaled out to a company that really knew what they were doing. They had great marketing. They had great infrastructure, knew the business side. I knew nothing. I just knew how to do the work. I knew how to show up on time. I knew how to leave and go on to the next job. So I was a contractor for a period of time. That fell after helping a family member. So now after the year of that trial, then it's assembly time again. So I started building back up. In that time, the guy that I was contracting to added a franchise. And so there was a second person that also I was able to start doing that same kind of work for. So now I had two companies that I was doing contract work. Again, almost 90% now was done under the banner of somebody else. 10% I was still doing stuff on the side. And then that relationship fell apart at a certain point, and I started two things. Number one, I started a promotions company. During that downtime, I became a NASCAR fan. Local driver Dave Blaney introduced me to the whole NASCAR scene, promotions and marketing on that side. So I started working with his race team, his fan base, his merchandising company, and expanded even into other drivers and into the NASCAR scene. And I made some pretty nice money in the marketing company. So we'll say that that's a promotions company. And at the same time, I started Youngstown Computer. And same thing, spent majority of my time. Now, this was my own gig. I started out with one customer, and I grew probably doubled every month. So I would probably, by the end of the year, I was probably making enough to pay all of my expenses. I started out in a room in my house, had no retail front. I was all field services, so I didn't have any kind of real monthly liabilities, but it was all of my stuff, right? It was all me. And I grew to the point where I could no longer do it. And I hired my brother in. He was working as a salesperson, and he came in, and I taught him a lot of the tech, and he took over residential services and I took over commercial services. So he was working a couple hours a day residential while I was growing that up. At the same time, I was also into reptiles as a kid. I was breeding. I was importing animals from Madagascar and Africa. We were doing breeding projects with another guy in Las Vegas, and then selling the offspring in the reptile trade. And so the food that a lot of my stuff ate was silkworms. And so I started a silkworm company, Silkworm Farm. And since Nick was working half days with me and then doing his car place during the day, I made this other company that we were breeding these silkworms, packaging them up, and doing mail order. And so Nick broke away from the car dealership, and he did residential services, and he also did Silkworm Farm. He did those two things. So at two companies that he and I were working, and we were filling in all of the gaps, made enough money to be able to make it worth our while by doing those three jobs. So Youngstown Computer's growing up. Now residential services is growing up, and the Silkworm Farm is growing up. And then that guy that I was telling you about that I was doing the reptile breeding with, we always kind of threatened if we ever had enough money that we would host our own reptile expo and do it in Las Vegas. Las Vegas didn't have one, so let's do it there. And so there was maybe 12 years ago, we decided to do the Las Vegas Reptile Expo. And we basically took over one of the rooms there. We got a bunch of hotel rooms, and then we sold tables to other people who wanted to sell reptiles and the peripheral for breeding and housing reptiles. And we did that for a good maybe 6 or 7 years. And so the residential services on the computer side grew to the point where we couldn't really do the silkworms anymore. So that one, we kind of closed that down. Very lucrative, very hard work, but it was very lucrative. But the computer thing was, I kind of knew where I was supposed to be, and I ended up doing computers, grew that up. Then, put multiple office locations, moved to Struthers downtown, then moved Struthers uptown, opened an office over in Niles, and then opened the studio downtown. But all of these catalysts, like when I go back in time, none of those eras were enjoyable by any means. It was always a struggle. It was always like, it didn't have enough money to do it, wasn't growing fast enough. Always liabilities were outpacing, income, but there was always growth. There was always a new move that I was making through each one of these eras. And each one of them seemed like it was a lot more calculated looking back than it actually was in the moment. A lot of these things were just following my intuitions of where I thought I should be. And then the ones that ended up working out, I would invest more in, and the ones that didn't, I would, leave behind. And so bringing it back to, the new entrepreneur and looking like, where would you want to fit into? Nobody wants to start from the beginning. Like, nobody wants to be a terrible baseball player. And the best time, when you're those 15 or 16-year-old kids that we're talking to at schools, that's the best time to start wrapping your head around what it means to be an entrepreneur, not the version of it that the pyramid scheme people will sell you, where you get into this business and you get Cadillacs, right? It's more like a you get to participate. There's a freedom of failure, and there's also a freedom of success. You make good moves, you reinvest those things just like anything else. You invest in your knowledge, you invest in your company, you can grow to that next level. And that next level is a little bit more difficult than the previous level, and where it's hard to even sometimes measure the successes between those levels, because you grew up, but then your struggles got worse, and then you grew up a little bit more and your struggles got a little bit more complicated. So I was like, okay, I got to keep getting smarter. So I was on a constant tear of getting my technical knowledge, staying and developing that, and also developing my business knowledge, because I was still an idiot when it came to business. I was still making dumb mistakes, and every dumb mistake cost me tens of thousands of dollars. And I got sick of being stupid in certain areas, but I kept traveling through it. I was like, okay, I made the mistake because I tried to do it myself. I tried to do my taxes one time, and I paid a big mistake on that. I was like, hey, the reason I'm making big mistakes is because I'm trying things that are not in my wheelhouse. So my new philosophy is I'm going to give away the responsibility to someone who knows knows what they're doing. And it seems now that was like, oh, that should occur to you beyond. But you know what spoke first? It was the lack of cash. I figured that if instead of paying $200 to an accountant to do it right, I could save that $200 and reinvest in the company if I tried to do it myself. And I was confident that I could actually do it right. And the evidence was that I couldn't. And so on that point, I was like, no, I'm giving it away to people who know what they're doing. It saves me the emotional turmoil, the anxiety and it also saves me from the financial consequences of doing something stupid. So every one of my stupid moves I survived from. And there was a ton of them in that pile that could have killed me, and some of them should have killed me. And I should have, been so stupid that I probably should have been stayed down once I hit the mat. But I kept getting up. I kept dusting myself off. I kept, working out and through another day. And I had the assembly of zero other people to really confide in and talk about and mentor through. This show is primarily what I wish I had when I was going through that. So this show is not for everyone. This really is a segment of the population who wants a little bit better than what they have and have maybe some confidence issues. Well, if you weren't stupid like me, I was stupid. The evidence says I shouldn't have, and I can't. Right. But I was too stubborn to be able to give in to the fact that I shouldn't have been even trying what I was trying, and ended up working out for me because of that persistence and the ability to say, hey, my ego's not so big that if I come up with a failure that everybody's going to poke me in the eye after that failure and tell me that how stupid I was. I didn't have anybody in my life that would give me good advice, but I also didn't have people in my life that wouldn't, punch me in the face every time that I came up short. And thank God that I had the wife that I did that went through all of these struggles, and not a single time did she erode my confidence. And then that ends up being so key. And I the books that I read, it's always that factor. The people that you have around you could sink or lift you up. And again, feels very cliche because you read that, but this is a personal story that was the evidence. And I see that evidence show up over and over again in people's stories. And that's why I say it's super important to get those supportive people around you from the very beginning. And I hope I'm the voice to that, to everybody else that, drive through that. So anyway, you probably know everything from this point. Youngstown Computer grew up. It hired a bunch of employees. We've assembled thousands of customers in the area. We've courted this radio station. This radio station has been amazing to us in helping us develop our marketing. Because remember, I was an idiot about it. And thank goodness there were some smart people that worked here that kind of like had checks and balances over me. When I wanted to do something stupid, they gave me good advice and I followed their advice. It worked out. And I was like, okay, cool. This is the philosophy of giving the priority to the people who know what they're doing. And then they'll be loyal to me and I'll be loyal right back to them. And that's the relationship that we've had with WKBN here for way over a decade at this point. So then Youngstown Computer, then we started an investment company. We were making more money than we needed to grow the enterprise. We were kind of limited as how many people we could hire and how many stores we could open. There was a comfort in my management of being able to control what I had. So we started buying interests in other small businesses. We would make these micro investments, maybe $20,000, $30,000 in a startup that needed some funding. And then we take an equity interest in these. And then basically where I could take my gaze and help a start-out company to get caught up and to grow and to not make some of the mistakes that I did. And in return, when those would sell off or those would have profitable years, then I could use the revenue from those streams to fund even more help for more companies. Because that overall philosophy, when it's hard, you want to say, hey, when I get through this, I am going to help somebody who was where I was, and that was when I was a kid. I didn't have people to talk to. When I was starting the business, I didn't have people to share that with. I didn't have what I really wanted, and I want to be there for those people, going forward. And then Youngstown Studio came to fruition. We were telling our story. We were demonstrating what we can do. We were attracting customers just by showing what our brand is and how it's done. And we could do that best by doing storytelling and just doing the demonstrations. You walk in, you're going through the carnival, and one of the most paid attention to booths at the carnival was the knife salesman guy, right? Because you watch them do stuff that they're like, wow, that's kind of cool. And then you would have never bought knives from just a kiosk that the knives sat there, right? Because knives are not that interesting. And if you want knives, you know where to go to get them. But that knife, that was a special knife. That's one that could cut through a Pepsi can and then go down the side of an onion. That's a special knife. But it took a guy to be able to illustrate that. And I don't even know the knives that you buy at Target. Can they cut through an onion in a pop kit? I have no idea. I've never tried it, but because a feature that I didn't even know existed was there. And that guy that took the time to explain it. And I was like, hey, showing things off and demonstrating is the way. If we're in an industry that displays very well, it's exciting when you can show somebody how to do something. And then they're like, wow, and a light bulb comes on. That's a sellable thing. So that's Youngstown Computer and Youngstown Studio became that end product. And then the Youngstown Computer Marketing came after that, where we were going to help other companies do what we did for our own companies, because it absolutely works out. The math is perfect on it. And now we're working with athletes and artists to try to sell their thing. So that's the whole gamut. Like, I went through 25 years of different pivots, different companies, different philosophies, different change agents, different failures, and got up to where I am today. So I think I've assembled sort of a history that most small businesses that we sit down with are all saying the same thing. All of their challenges are almost 100% uniform. Right. There's very few things that I see on a daily basis. So, one thing that this year and the last couple of years that I saw that I've never seen before is where a market shifts drastically, right? Inflation and access to capital and whatever. I'm playing in a different game here where I'm not dealing with where residential services, the demand was always there. When the housing bubble crashed, people just didn't elect to not use their computer. When it was broken, they came to me, we fixed it, and that was it. So we never really saw anything change on the computer side. But now we're in different markets. When somebody needs marketing services and business is slow, they might cut back on their marketing budget, and that affects how things happen. So as costs go up and inflation goes up and labor costs go up, it affects it. I'm like, okay, well, this is a pivot I've never done before. So even to this day, I am learning about new concepts that I have a feeling in 5 years from now, I'll be teaching these same concepts we're learning today to the next generation so that they can orient themselves to be more successful and be able to anticipate and get through tougher times too. And so, but the trends, the things that people mostly need help with are branding and creating a name that's recognizable to the market, and an awareness of what that brand does and where the value is. Because remember, when you get in the entrepreneur's mind, it's not about putting a paycheck in the bank account. It's about putting things of value into the marketplace, how you can take a resource, add some talent to it, have a product that people want, and they have access to it now because you provided it. And so if you're not thinking about how you can improve something in the marketplace, and you're not doing it as well as you probably could, if you're emulating and doing it exactly the way that your neighbor is, right, then that's not really improvement on the marketplace. But again, that disconnection between how the typical brain is going to fire and how the entrepreneur brain is going to fire, it can be two completely different things. And just like after when COVID happened, I mean, it was a total disruption in everything from you lost all your customers in a single day. And do you know if you're ever going to get them back? All your workforce is sitting at home. Are they ever going to come back? Your distribution lines, are they ever going to come back? So going through that time, every day was looking down and into your crystal ball and finding out, am I going to be the same on the other side of it? So think about how many hypotheticals the small business person had to go through to figure out what they were going to do when the world normalized back again. And we made a lot of really good choices. Sometimes I think it was just by sheer luck that we went the right direction, but there's a lot of people who made other choices and they're no longer in business anymore. So it's just, again, some of these things are predictable and you can have contingencies for, and some of them are, you're just going to pay the consequences of a market that shifts around you and there's nothing you really can do about it. All right, we'll wrap up this story when we get back from this next break, and then we got the computer show coming up next. You're listening to the Bottom Line Business Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
Ohio, ready for some quick mental health facts? Let's go. Nearly 2 million Ohioans live with a mental health condition. In the U.S., more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. So why are some of us still stigmatizing people living with a mental health condition when we know all of this? Let's listen to the facts and beat the stigma. Ohio, challenge what you know about mental health at beatthestigma.org.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. Those of you just joining us, we're talking about some of the history of my enterprises and where I came from, sort of to kind of seed and populate sort of the mentality that you have to generate differently than the normal human brain. You got to really be comfortable in some certain things that could get uncomfortable, at times, especially with unknowns. Like there's a great deal of anxiety that comes with you just don't know what to predict what's happening next, and things out of your control, like the government decides to do something that affects your business, or the workforce changes, or the culture changes, or there's a war or anything. Those disruptions and having, some kind of what you would do other than, I don't know what I do. I hope that doesn't happen. Because there was a couple elements in my story where I played the stupid game. I can remember one where I drove without car insurance for a period of time and thinking like, I got to drive super safe because I can't afford to make this payment. And, really dumb and very irresponsible. But that wasn't the only time that I pushed the limits on. If it went one way and got away with it, then cool. But man, what happens if that would have happened? I would have been sunk. Like, how did I put all of my future riding on the risk of doing something that was game ending? Game theory is that, first rule of game theory is you keep playing the game. You don't make any choice that ends the game. And so long that you don't make all your chips on red type of movement, you get to play another day. You can rise up and overcome something that happened to you. But another one of the struggles that we hear out is that lack of capital and cash flow. And right now we're experiencing that. If you're in real estate right now, you're feeling the effects. They made money more expensive to borrow. So if your customers are struggling with either not making the decision to buy because of an inflated interest rate, or that the access to capital is more strict, then your industry is like, just lend these guys money. I need to make a living. People still want to buy houses, and you're making it harder for them to buy houses. And so what do I do? And that's a forced pivot by an outside source. So what do you do? Like, when times are good, you put stuff aside, and then you use what you stored. And in our industry, or in my business, it's usually between 10 and 20% of retained earnings put away for that oh crap moment. And so that's something that's super liquidable. I can have access to in case something goes wrong, and I can fund my way out of it until the prospect of better times comes there. But I had that insurance policy of having that cash somewhere. It takes a while to accumulate enough for it to be worthwhile. So in the short term, you're playing with fire, because if that bad thing happens and you don't have that insurance policy, you could find yourself doing something completely different and doing a reset. And resets absolutely suck. The momentum that you get from operating is so much different than day one. I have no customers and I got to do something. So I would much rather someone bring a broken business plan with a broken company to me that at least has some activity, even if it's bad activity, even if there's a red line, or the numbers at the bottom of the page are all in red. I would prefer that to I've got a company that it's just in my head and I need to put it into practice. So why when we saw these, owners They've got these companies that are 70 years old, and they can't find someone to buy it from them because it's either cottage industry or it's not an industry that's it's in the sweet spot anymore. And they can't take their heirs and take it over, and they're just like, well, I did my thing, I put enough money away, I'm going to shut this down. I think that was a sin, because if I wanted to start that business right now, it would be impossible or very hard to get that started today. So for it not to end up being assumed by another company, or at least handed off and allowed to survive. So we even put that on our radar, is we're going to try, if we see a company that's putting out the help me flags, we're going to see if we can either broker some kind of sale, or we're going to our enterprises are going to try to fill in and see if we can take over those companies. There have been probably 4 or 5 that we talked to over the last 2 years that were in that same boat, that were good candidates to say, hey, you know what, I want to retire, I don't have a single person that can run operations, can I just have you run operations, doing my part, what I was doing, and still let my employees do their thing? And we're like, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. What we're really, really good at is writing those forward-thinking plannings, growing and scaling up, and then, rewriting processes so that they stay up with the time. So if you've got a 20-year-old business that you've watched your margins erode over the last 10 years, and that you're close to break even anyhow, right? Well, we can refactor the mathematics, and instead we don't have like an emotional investment in that. So we can come in and make a change that we don't have like regrets or whatever from. It's a mathematical problem solving mission rather than emotional mission. So we've done a good bit of that. But again, all of that story, I just wanted to, not all of you have heard that origin, and I'm going to take this and record it, and I'm going to put it in this archives, so that if this story is ever to be told again, I can refer to it, and that way you can be caught up in the path that a typical serial entrepreneur, and you hear that serial entrepreneur because it seems like no matter what happens to the person, they always come up to the top and they start again, and they get pushed down again and they start up again. Then, or once they get and create, it's not the factor of they've made enough money, but it's a thirst that they have to keep creating and adding value and making things better and innovating. And I knew that's what I was going to be from a young kid. And I spent the last 25 years in real life making all that stuff come to fruition. So if you're sitting on the couch, you've got some good ideas, I want to encourage you to get started on it. Because even if you didn't get started when you were at the T-ball age, now is a really good time to start. And I don't want you to have any regrets that you went out of this lifetime without at least giving it a shot. All right, that's it for the Bottom Line Business Show. We'll come back with the Youngstown Computer Show right after these commercials. You're listening to 570 WKBN.
Farming is dangerous. There's dangers all around us. We work around it and we live around it every day. And we just become desensitized to what's around us.
We go through safety training and, we try and do these things to make sure accidents don't happen, but you just never know.
There are so many farmers that I think take for granted all of the underground utilities that are there.
You don't want to hit a gas pipe because that's your life. The other part of it is if you hit certain things, you're liable for it.
I mean, we kind of know what's out here, but all at the same time, you just always call.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Whether you're installing drain tile or doing any sort of digging, always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked and have the depth confirmed. That's farming with care. But if a line does get damaged, go somewhere safe and call 911.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
From the Fairway Ford Studios, fairwayfordohio.com. Fairway, that's the way we do business. This is News Radio 570 WKBN, Youngstown. The time is 1 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. The U.S. military has started dropping aid into the Gaza Strip. 3 C-130 military cargo planes releasing about 38,000 meals along the coast. U.S. officials saying it's the first of many deliveries. ABC's Aaron Flaherty at the Pentagon.
The food drops began around 3 p.m. local time with the help of the Royal Jordanian Air Force. It's unclear when the U.S. will conduct its next aid drop. President Biden has promised that more will be done to help the 2 million people living in Gaza. Desperation inside the Gaza Strip has become unfathomable. Days ago, 100 Palestinians were reported killed after trying to pull goods from an aid convoy. The World Health Organization says it's recorded several children dying of starvation. Ann Flaherty, ABC News, the Pentagon.
Ranchers in the fire-scarred Texas Panhandle facing the grim task of collecting and getting rid of lots of dead cattle that have been killed by the smoke and flames of wildfires. Officials have estimated the fires have killed thousands of cattle. Chance Bowers is ranch operator at X Cross X Ranch.
I've spent the last 15 years building this cow herd up, and you can lose it overnight. But we've been very blessed and very fortunate that we've only got to lose 200,
Ranchers have also lost barns, feed supplies, fences, and vast stretches of scorched grass that surviving cattle need to eat. Oregon lawmakers changing course on the state's first-in-the-nation drug decriminalization policies. ABC's Mark Remillard has more.
In 2020, Oregon voters decriminalized possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use. That didn't go as planned, though, as it didn't translate into improved care, and the state had the second highest rate of substance use disorder in the nation last year. Now the state legislature has approved a plan to recriminalize drug possession. Police can also seize drugs and crack down on their use in public. Mark Remillard, ABC News.
And you're listening to ABC News.
The investigation goes on into a crash Friday morning on Route 87 in Middlefield Township, Geauga County, involving 2 trucks and a school bus. The bus from the Cardinal Local Schools was stopped to pick up children. Suddenly, a flatbed truck ran into a pickup truck stopped behind the bus, forcing it off the road. Then the flatbed ran into the rear of the bus. A Middlefield fire spokesman told 3 News,
"The driver of the sanitary truck was heavily entrapped in his truck, so we had to extricate him by means of mechanical extrication, and the driver of the pickup truck was also trapped inside his pickup truck."
Those 2 men were taken to the hospital by EMS. Children on the bus were taken to the hospital by their parents. A man is in custody in relation to a shooting on I-270 in Columbus. The shooting happened in August 2023 near the Hamilton Road exit when then 19-year-old Ricky Hill allegedly opened fire on a vehicle as an act of road rage. The shooting injured a 25-year-old man and a 1-year-old child, both of whom survived. Hill was arrested by a Gahanna SWAT team on Thursday and is facing 2 counts of felonious assault. Beginning Friday, employers in the city of Columbus can no longer ask job applicants about their salary history.
It applies to employers with 15 or more workers in the city and also covers previous benefits packages or other compensation history. Councilwoman Lourdes de Padilla proposed the move last year in an effort to combat pay inequity for women and minorities. The ordinance also specifies employers are still permitted to ask job applicants about their salary expectations. Violations of the new law can result in fines of up to $5,000. I'm Scott Jennings.
A popular pizza restaurant in Marysville is closed after catching on fire. The fire was reported Thursday night at Benny's Pizza Pub and Patio on Columbus Avenue. No injuries were reported, and the cause of the fire remains under investigation. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 1:30. You can be the talk of the town right here.
Thank you much. I love what you're doing. I'm a tremendous fan of yours.
570 WKBN.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
Rain showers begin to wrap up heading into this afternoon. Expect scattered clouds around for your Saturday afternoon with high temperatures in the low 50s. Scattered clouds stick around overnight tonight as low temperatures fall into the upper 30s. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
Are you shopping for a great pre-owned deal? If so, then get to the sale at your locally owned Stadium GM Pre-Owned Superstore. Right now, we've got over $3 million of inventory on our huge lot, all on sale. We've got cars starting from just $4,000, SUVs from $5,000, and a great selection of trucks from only $6,000. To see it all, go to stadiumgm.com and then stop out at the locally owned store where Zero Down delivers every day. The Stadium GM Pre-Owned Superstore in Salem.
Hi, I'm Chris from Novellis. Novellis is a leading producer of flat-rolled aluminum products and the world's largest recycler of aluminum. Novellus has 3 manufacturing facilities right here in Ohio. We partner with stakeholders throughout the manufacturing industry in our communities and are committed to protecting the environment and making a positive impact on our employees, customers, and communities we live and work in. Would you like to learn more about career opportunities? Visit novellus.com. Novellus, shaping a sustainable world together.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
All right. Welcome, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show, the longest lasting technology and computer show on WKBN here in the Valley. We set this up originally to give a place, if you're just courting into technology, don't know a lot about it, a place to be able to ask those simple questions and to get some insights onto to using technology today. So, and I don't know what that translates to now. I don't know how much of the marketplace can't use a keyboard and mouse, when in the beginning, that's what we were teaching. We were teaching how to right click, how to go places. And then it got into, safety and defending against vulnerabilities, right? And then it went into multimedia and making sure you can get to your music and your movies, and even push that stuff out of your TVs and your other devices. So we're definitely making sort of like a pathway towards becoming way better computer users than we were in the beginning of this program. And I love that about it. You guys have all kind of grown up around it and gotten better throughout the years and got interested. Like you tinkerers out there are some of my favorite, because you'll spend a Saturday getting some new equipment and playing with that childlike curiosity. And I love that there's so much discovery in that method of learning. And I'm totally in love with it. A little bit of news since the last show that we did. We had 2 things that happened. So first is the AT&T Verizon cellular phone outage that a lot of you in this audience, myself included, had suffered one. I think it was like a Monday morning or something like that. I dropped my kid off at school. I'm driving. I look down at my phone. It says SOS on the top. And I couldn't make outgoing calls. I was on the road and I was like, did I put it in SOS mode? So I had to Google real quick, like stuck in SOS mode. Is there anything I could do to get it out? And when I Googled it, the news article came up that they were having some kind of network outage at the time. But that origin story, and I got a funny SOS story for you, by the way. We were, sorry, it occurred to me that it was funny, so I'll just bring it up now. We were hiking the Grand Canyon. We were way down in the canyon. And some of the people that I were hiking with, they were carrying their iPhone. They were taking pictures. Now, if you hold down, I believe it's the power button and the down button, maybe, you get a screen that you can say that you're in distress. And what it'll do is it'll send messages out to all of your family and favorited contacts that basically saying, this person is in distress, send help, right? And then when we were down the canyon, everybody knew that we were doing this, and one of the people in our party accidentally SOS'd it out and sent messages that we were in distress. She had to call everybody and tell them that we weren't in distress, but that was fun. Anyway, so it was in distress. It was in SOS mode. And I got to the office. I kind of looked it up to see if this was an attack of some kind, where, we know our infrastructure is always sort of a target for outside countries that want to take a shot at us and disrupt communications and therefore disrupt our, financial industries. And so looked at that, didn't feel like it was an attack. I also look at solar weather on a regular basis, and we were at not a really big solar storm, but there was a big enough one that maybe there was some communication disruptions. What that is when you get this ejection of electromagnetic energy, it heads towards Earth. And so if you're pointed in the same direction that one of these mass ejections are, then you're going to basically get a lot more electromagnetic activity that hits the Earth. Typically, the ionosphere will intercept that and then dump it off at the poles, and you'll see these big northern lights, and that's the result of that dump off. But if it's too big of a storm, then the ionosphere can't, sort of like diffuse it all out, and some of it reaches the ground and it disturbs electronics, right? Biggest one was the Carrington event long time ago, probably 1800s. I don't know when it was, but it was a long time ago when there were actually it was before telephones, before electronics. So what they did was they had the telegram lines were all copper, and they were actually electrified and sparking. There was so much energy that was permeating, coming down through the atmosphere. They saw sparking, and that's the last major disruptive solar storm that we've had. And, a lot of engineers look at this and say, what would happen today if we got another Carrington event? And it would be absolutely catastrophic. There would be a lot of burnouts. Like our electronics and instruments are way more sensitive than they were at one time. And this isn't just like a lightning strike where it's just going to follow down cables. This is going to be like blanketing everything in electromagnetic activity. And so you can get communication like we saw with AT&T, but I think it would have been everybody. I think if it were a solar storm, that most of the networks would fall victim to it, because I don't think we have a lot of technology that would totally prevent something like that. But it was still a possibility, so that's why it was one of the options. So anyway, but it's the origin of the thought there would be, if it did happen, you and your family, what would happen? Would this be COVID-like, where it would apply to everyone? And so, you wouldn't go to work that day, but neither would everyone else. And so you'd all just kind of hang tight. Or if you're out and your security system's out and you can't make phone calls and you can't do bank transactions, does some of the companies go down and maybe some stay open? Like what would our society be like if we were to go out? And I think that it would be not just an outage where there would be a communication disruption. I think a lot of our electronics would be could be shorted out. If you take, let's just say, the computer in your car that handles fuel injection and handles all the everything's electronics controlled. So you get, this electromagnetic field that goes down, starts really pulsing more electricity through those circuit boards than it can handle, and it shorts out. Now your car's in the driveway and you don't have a car that can move, right? And so multiply that by all your electronics and how many things are properly shielded from a big electromagnetic storm. You really don't know. I mean, I guess you could do some testing. You could build a Faraday cage in your living room and put all your stuff in there, and hopefully that shields it from the blanket of electromagnetics. But there would be a lot of stuff that would be broken, and some of the stuff would just be disrupted. But, it's almost like when you're making plans, if there were ever a fire in your house, what you would do, what supplies you would put aside. You have to take into consideration stuff like this too, and took a moment and say, okay, if this was a real deal, do I have backups? Like, let's just say it wasn't a solar storm, but it was just an attack on AT&T's network. What would I do? Do I have a phone that is a different carrier that I could still operate, and so on and so forth? So that was just something to think about, in the moment. Second story that happened while we were away last week, we landed a device on the moon. United States company with in conjunction with NASA, as a lead up to the Artemis project, where we're going to be taking even more supplies and eventually people to the moon. They launched this device. It was a couple $100 million. Private industry supplied the stuff, and I think NASA was just a partner in on it. And what ended up happening was it made, I think it was a 5-day voyage before it reached. It did one rotation around the moon, and then it found its landing spot. But as it was landing, it lost its primary computer, its navigation computer. And I believe that's going to be what's necessary in order to land this thing on the moon, where they were then blind, where the automatic computers were taking in visual data and telemetry data and all that kind of stuff and landing the craft. Well, that went out. And so what ended up happening, they switched over to a backup system. I'm going to call it backup, but it actually was some just experimental LiDAR devices that were on board. And they used that as a backup system to be able to get an outline of where the landing spot was. And even though they were not totally blind, they were not as in good shape as they could have been. Well, they came in hot. They were not oriented. I think they were off target by a little bit. And when they hit the ground, I believe they snapped one of the landing arms and caused the whole device. Like the first reports were that the solar panel or the device was operating at low power because the solar panels were not oriented correctly. And then the next day we found out that, well, it might be leaning against a rock. And then the next day came out that the whole thing lost a leg and tipped over and is actually lying on the ground. Now they say that it continued to relay data, pictures, and the mission overall was a success, even though this thing was lying on its side, on the surface of the moon. But it was only designed to be a 1 week instrument. So it had enough stuff to do a week worth of data collection, and it was going to be off. Well, yesterday it went offline, and will now sleep there as a member of the ever increasing space junk we put on other planets. So we'll have to see what condition it's in, but it's dead to the world now. I don't think that they're going to make it do anything. I think they have the ability that they can wake it up if they needed to, but I think it's in the deep sleep for good. So Odysseus is now dead on the moon. But the next step, I believe in 2025, we're going to send another part of the Artemis project is we're going to send another payload to the moon. And then 2026, I believe we are going to have people on the moon. So we're about 2 years away from doing what we did in 1969. It's weird to even think about all of the technological advances that we have now, and it is still a super hard endeavor to do space travel and land on the moon. It makes me think that in 1969, with limited resources in technologies and electronics, how they pulled that off with mostly mechanical devices that got them to the moon. And I think because of the political nature of where the space program was at the time, where we're competing with other countries and everybody was on board and the marketing behind it was just off the charts, that they almost could dabble in a little bit more danger than what we could tolerate today. Because I mean, if the space program had some kind of catastrophe where we had, I don't think the space program could survive as many catastrophes as that initial early programs were able to do. And so they've got to really cross their T's, dot their I's to make sure that safety, is the highest priority. The timing can be off. Like we'll tolerate a 3-year delay before they get it right. And we'll also tolerate the expense where it might cost twice what they say it's going to. But that middle part, I think all the chips are on that. It's got to be safe. You cannot have a problem. And what illustrates with the Odysseus probe is that when they had a failure, that I'm almost certain when human beings are involved, they go through the processes of every considerated contingency that could happen. If this happens, switching to this backup, and they rehearse it. They go through the simulations and think about what they can do today. They can simulate even more possibilities with even greater accuracy, so that if the astronauts, the people flying this thing when it ultimately goes, knows exactly what to do when that thing happens. Because it seemed like this $200 million version of it with no people on it didn't have really a backup system in that case. And you saw what happened. It was a less than expected landing, survived, got data, but still, if you paid $200 million and you didn't get a lot of data out of it, you're going to be a little disappointed in that enterprise. So I'm still unsure what the range of what they were collecting, what data they were going after. I was expecting they were going really after picking a landing site. So they're probably looking at terrain. They were probably taking samplings to see what the structure of the ground was around where the landing was. And then, pictures galore. And if there were pictures galore, we didn't see any of them. And maybe that was part of the navigation system that ended up dying, was part of the photography or imagery that came out of that. And well, I don't know. They haven't released that. So we'll keep in mind. We'll see that. And the last piece of news is the Apple car, the EV, the super technology car. After every bit of 5-6 years. And, they put a lot of money into developing the Apple car, and they had a lot of engineers that were working on the problem. They even did a good bit of battling between Tesla's engineers and taking some of those for the Apple project, but it ultimately has shut down. And I'm a little disappointed because I was kind of curious as to see what kind of tech Apple would come up with. But I truly believe that the Steve Jobs playbook had the beginning of the Apple car, but there's not a Steve Jobs at Apple anymore. So I think the end of the car is why the thing got canceled and will never make its way to the marketplace, or it looks that way as of right now. Because with Steve Jobs, the Apple car died. And you see that with every product that they've developed since his passing has been less admirable than it probably should be. So anyway, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about computers when we get back. If you want to call 330-729-9977, or you can text me at 333-1570, and I'll read those questions live on the air here on the Youngstown Computer Show. You're listening to 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-509-8536. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-509-8536. That's 800-509-8536. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
The rule of law is under attack.
On college campuses, violence is on the rise.
And authorities in that city said they will not arrest shoplifters who participated.
Citizens sued because the agency ignored the Constitution.
The way out of the chaos depends on electing conservative judges who will stand by the Constitution. That's Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey, running for Court of Appeals.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Gun owners, pro-life advocates, and Trump supporters across Eastern Ohio are supporting Caitlin Dickey because they know she can be trusted.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Caitlin Dickey is endorsed by Sheriff Brian McLaughlin and more than 20 conservative Republican leaders. Defender of the Constitution. Vote Caitlin Dickey for judge.
Paid for by Dickey for judge.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owe the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-647-0499. 800-647-0499. That's 800-647-0499.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
I'm Sheriff Jerry Green.
On March 19th, you will have the opportunity to vote on Issue 1, the renewal of the criminal justice sales tax. This 3/4 of 1 penny sales tax is solely used to fund the sheriff's office, prosecutor, coroner, and dispatch. This is not an increase in your taxes. The stability of our criminal justice system and the safety of our neighborhoods and families is vital. Mahoning County deserves better than other communities that have defunded their police. Please vote yes on Issue 1. Paid for by FOP 141.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danier.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. If you want to call the program, 330-729-9977. You can also text me at 330-333-1570, and I will read your comments aloud on the air, try to do my best to answer them. Next, we're going to go to Duke. Duke, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Hey, Joe, first-time caller, long-time listener. I wanted to get your take on starting a podcast. I've always wanted to do it. And what's your best advice? Because I know you do some of that stuff.
Putting on your own podcast?
Yeah, start my own podcast, thinking about it.
Okay. All right. And you want to tell me first what the topic is?
I have a variety of community things I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. So podcasting is really easy now. You're pretty much thinking that if you want to get started, you want to go kind of lowest dollar, lowest cost, you can do a lot of recording from your cell phone, your iPhone, your Android. Usually having a good microphone, like the one that's built into the phone, usually isn't good enough. So if you get a pair of AirPods, put it in your phone, do your recordings through your voice recorder, you pretty much have the audio content. If you can do it in like one take without having to edit, that makes it really easy on the production side. Publishing it out, we use a service called Podbean. And what you do is you pay them a monthly fee. I think they have a free version that gives you like your first 6 or 7 for nothing. And then you basically populate it with a bunch of recordings. And then you register Podbean with all of the different, all the different platforms. So you'll do iTunes and you'll do Google Podcasts, and you'll keep adding to that, to your list. And then they'll register and start rolling out your podcast to all those other platforms. So there's 3 phases. 1, recording and getting a good setup so that you can record your stuff, getting a service that will let you put an aggregate of all of your content together, and then registering with all of the platform, which Podbean makes it super easy to get registered.
Great. Yeah, I've heard that sound's always a problem.
Yeah, for sure. And if you I think it's called like Blue is the microphone. Blue microphones, probably the best like production quality audio that you can get if you just plug a USB into your computer, and then you can download Audacity, which is an editing piece of software. It's free. So with a $150 microphone and an Audacity, which is free, you'll have the same tools that we use in the production studio.
Okay, and then I'm going to leave you on this one. Is there any good podcasts to listen to around Youngstown area? Thanks a lot, Jeff.
All right. Thank you so much. I am such a weirdo when it comes to what podcasts I listen to. I think I probably spend a lot of my time into like the Joe Rogan deal, where I go down the rabbit hole where I'll see a guest and I'll listen to them, but then I'll go out and find out that they have a podcast, and then I'll learn more about them. But I'm really into like science and technology and really smart academics. And so I find myself all over the place. And if I stay too long at one podcast, I kind of get disappointed, but I'll use that as sort of my route in to finding a vein of things that interest me. And then I'll just be all over the place. I'll go in this mode where I'll listen to all business podcasts. So I can't make a real recommendation, but I will recommend that you also listen to one of the big names, and then follow their guests around as you find where your interests are. I think the delivery mechanism for me, if you already know what you need, or like, I think some of the platforms are good at delivering you that content, but I buy into people a little bit. And so even though you have a business podcast, I might listen to 10 of them and only like one or two of the people that I'm listening to. So, but if I can get a sampling them on Joe Rogan or a national, that's where I find my best leads on that. So thank you for that question. 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN.
We are standing on one of the world's largest natural untapped resources,
We have enough natural gas under our feet to supply our energy needs for the next 400 years. Fuel prices affect everything, and Ohioans can barely afford to live. Until we come up with something better, we need to get it out of the ground now. But I'll also remove the trade secret clause and make these companies reveal the chemicals they use. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
In Stark County, an 18-year-old man who pleaded guilty this week to charges he raped a young child has now been sentenced to 10 years to life in prison. Elijah Gardner was convicted this week in the assault on the 3-year-old victim. Investigators say the rape took place at the home of the victim's babysitter. Charges of aggravated arson have been filed against Angela Schweitzer, arrested this week accused of firebombing a Winton Hills market. The incident happened in November at Treetop Grocery and resulted in more than $300,000 in damage. The Ohio Department of Transportation is preparing for a likely flood of traffic for April's total solar eclipse. ODOT Press Secretary Matt Bruning says April 8th will be an all-hands-on-deck day for the department. Anywhere from 150,000 to 575,000 visitors could make their way to the Buckeye State to view the eclipse in the line of totality, where the sun will appear completely covered. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 2. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, news, talk, and sports radio. Podcast 2.
Download the app.
Free never sounded so good.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
Rain showers begin to wrap up heading into this afternoon. Expect scattered clouds around for your Saturday afternoon with high temperatures in the low 50s. Scattered clouds stick around overnight tonight as low temperatures fall into the upper 30s. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
All rise.
In today's dangerous world, we need a judge who will be fair and who will keep our community safe. That's conservative Republican Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's running for Court of Appeals.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with experience prosecuting criminals and getting them off our streets.
She's a protector.
And Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with judicial experience issuing protection orders for women and children.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey respects our U.S. Constitution and proudly took the oath to protect it.
She's a protector. Judge Caitlin Dickey has the experience we need. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the Constitution. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the people. Vote conservative Republican Judge Caitlin Dickey for Court of Appeals.
Paid for by Dickey for Judge.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Farming is dangerous. There's dangers all around us. We work around it and we live around it every day. And we just become desensitized to what's around us.
We go through safety training and, we try and do these things to make sure accidents don't happen, but you just never know.
There are so many farmers that I think take for granted all of the underground utilities that are there.
You don't want to hit a gas pipe because that's your life. The other part of it is if you hit certain things, you're liable for it.
I mean, we kind of know what's out here, but all at the same time, you just always call.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Whether you're installing drain tile or doing any sort of digging, always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked and have the depth confirmed. That's farming with care. But if a line does get damaged, go somewhere safe and call 911.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danier.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I am Joe Danier, your host, owner of Youngstown Computer, and we've been doing this show for quite some time. This is your spot if you have any questions about technology, want to become a better user. Don't think the question is too simple or basic. You could be helping a ton of other people just by asking it. So give me a call, 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570 as well. Joe, when using a VPN on public Wi-Fi, does that also prevent the issuer or manufacturer of the computer or phone from gathering more info on you? Okay, so that is a good question. Let me explain what a VPN does and where its sweet spot is. So think of a VPN as a tunnel, all right? And so you put a piece of software on your computer that basically is a funnel for all outgoing traffic to travel over that funnel. And so if you go to a website, it's not asking your ISP's DNS to direct you. You're funneling that request through that gateway, that software that you put on your computer, and then all that traffic is encrypted, and then it's decrypted on the other side. So if you're on a hotel's Wi-Fi, and let's just say somebody set up an unsecured Wi-Fi at a hotel, and so basically, if they saw your traffic, all they're seeing is the already scrambled data as it's being sent over to the receiving end of the other side of the gateway. So the people who can see it, the people who are kept out of it, are anybody from the gateway door to the unencrypted or the other side of the gateway door and nothing else. So VPN does not do sort of like local or else on the other side, right? And so you got to really, and obviously the provider can see that traffic that it encrypted because it's actually hosting it. So you got to trust that what ExpressVPN and the other providers say, that the logs that they record are every 24 hours wiped out. So there's no permanent record of what was transmitted over their VPN. But your local stuff, let's just say your phone has a connection to AT&T's network, and the phone is allowed to send information, technical information, diagnostics information. It can still communicate unencumbered. Now, does it do anything? Do they have a history of it doing anything? Do we know that it's safe? Do we know it's encrypted? There's a lot of stuff that you can do to limit what your phone and how it participates in that network, for sure. But I think I'm a little mistrusting of that, even though there's not a lot of evidence that AT&T or Verizon or whatever is misusing their ability to track or to see. I think in the future, because there is a big demand for people and their anonymity, because they just there is no trust authority. I don't trust my government. I don't trust companies. I really don't trust anybody, because there's no benefit in trusting them. You can create technologies where, you can keep people out of your business. And so think about it this way. So your phone, when you decentralize it, where you're not pushing all of your data and your voice through the phone or the carrier, when it's separated, and well, let's just say you get your phone and you subscribe to X, and then use X's phone service to make phone calls. Well, your phone is just method to get you to X's phone service. So unless the two companies work together and decide that they're going to conspire to be able to give that to you, X could say, hey, you know what? We're not interested in who you are. We're not going to track you. This is safe, secure. We've got it audited. It's open source, all this stuff. And they, make the push of having totally anonymous voice service, right? Well, AT&T and Apple are kind of kept out of the equation. You're not even really using any of the local stuff besides the microphone and whatnot. In the future, I think you're going to be able to decouple that and have the device that you're hosting on really have no method of communicating to anybody. You're not using any of their services. You turn off all of the luxuries that come with the phone. They sold you a piece of hardware like an HP computer would, and after they sell it to you, they don't even know where it went, right? Because you then can ad hoc add the services that you want to connect it to, and it would be far too difficult for someone to conspire to get tracking on you when you decentralize and decouple. You make it you give yourself the advantage, and you take the security advantage away from those consolidated services. And it's not, like I said, I don't think those companies are doing anything nefarious. I do think that if like the FBI, for instance, or the CIA or some law enforcement agency found a criminal that was doing some stuff, they'd have interest in being able to go to a provider and being given a key that would allow them to use this device as a tracking mechanism, a listening mechanism. That would be really good from law enforcement side. But from the consumer side, you don't want your stuff to be able to, on its own, be accessible, right? We don't want that to even be a possibility. We want it to be a hard possibility. So when you hear law enforcement trying to force companies to do something, then you need to get behind the companies when they stand up to those big agencies and say, no, we're not really going to do it, because all our customers, the reason they're buying this device is that they'd like it to be secure. And if you're having a hard time getting in, or you're complaining that you can't get in, that's the evidence we need to know, that's the evidence we need to hear to know that you're moving in the right direction. Because I think the rights of the users are going to outweigh the consequences in law enforcement. Because do you trust law enforcement not to misuse that? I mean, some of you may, but I don't think it should be an option for them to begin with. You'll recall, I think this was back when Obama was president, and they captured a ISIS leader, and they had an iPhone. And on the iPhone, it was encrypted. And I believe the leader was dead, so it wasn't a matter of we forcing him to open his phone. But they brought it back and said, hey, Apple, I need you to get into this for us. Give us the magic key. And I was kind of watching to see whether or not they had a magic key, because I didn't want them to have a magic key. I want them to, if someone stole my phone and they called up Apple and say, hey, I got this phone and I forgot my password, can you help me get into it? I want them to say, not that, no, it's our policy, we're not going to do that. I want them to say, yeah, we can't do that. We lock this thing down where the owner had the seed number, and if we open this up, it's just going to be a bunch of random stuff, and we really can't get into it. But I got the hint that they didn't want to do it, but I got the hint that they really could do it if they wanted to. And that it's a little distressing when I don't think our trusts are going to get bigger and better. I think they're going to get worse. And I think consumers need to really draw that line and say, okay, you know what? These guys aren't really good at preventing and protecting anyway. And so giving up the freedoms of having anonymity doesn't mean that I'm a criminal and I'm going to use that freedom to, have a burn phone or conduct bad business or do illegal things on it. I'm saying, yeah, I don't want you to, disagree with my conspiracy theories about flat earth and that I don't think time is real, and use that as a reason to listen to me to see if you can, gain any information on me to potentially put me in jail for something. Right. And I trust that maybe there aren't some, not all great actors that are at the helms of these institutions. So I'd prefer you not to have it than to give you that option and have to fight against it. So that's my overall view. But to answer your question is no, VPN on public Wi-Fi does really nothing for the exchange between your phone and the carrier. It just goes out to the internet at large when you make internet requests. Well, I'll tell you this. I think it's possible. If you were to take all the network activity and direct all the network activity through the VPN, where it didn't have the choice to communicate using a different pathway, like if there was a subsystem within Apple that relayed diagnostics information, but it used the traditional internet to get there, then if you're doing VPN, that it couldn't really be grabbed while it's traveling. But once it's on the receiving end, it's decrypted anyway, so they would still be able to get that. So VPN, not a good tool, but there are a bunch of YouTube videos, articles, blogs about making the phone say less about you and make it harder. You lose some features when you do this, but you can turn off some location services and some data exchange permissions and rights. And again, as long as you're cool with losing some of the Apple features that come along with those permissions, it's good. I know a lot of people have a priority in the security department that put a higher priority on that. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Youngstown Computer is the provider of this program. So if you have any kind of tech need, we really appreciate it, whether you're residential or commercial, that you'd bring your business to us when you have some kind of need. On the commercial side, we're basically your IT staff. So if you've got a business that is big enough that you have computer problems, but so, maybe smaller that you can't really hire a full-time IT staff, you can contract through us to do all the things that full-time IT staff would be doing and have us do it. And a lot of our maintenances or our show-ups, we come once a week, maybe every other week, maybe once a month, depending on your network size. And then we just go down your list of things that you've hit. We have emergency services. So if you need something right now, something is out and down, you get us right away when it happens. But a majority of our stuff is we're doing the maintenance that should be going on, the backups and the updates and the updating software, and making sure that those automated systems are always running. And then, 50% of the business is I got a new printer, or the printer's not working fast, or the network's a little bit slow, or my Wi-Fi drops me. All these kind of break fix times of stuff. So we can do all of the stuff an IT department could do. Call us 330-259-7278. Also on the residential side, if you've got your residential computer, your home computer, we can work on those as well. And we've had generations, like we as a huge credit to our people, we've had referrals that have gotten to the 10th generation, where John tells Phil tells Bill. 10 of those generations of referrals down where people hand us off, and we've been dealing with you guys for over a decade now. Really awesome customer base. Our capabilities are everything from doing upgrades where old computers running a little bit slow, you need to make it run faster so you're not just tolerating it. You need this to be a tool that operates well, and so it can do all the things that we talk about on the show. And equipment replacement after you get 5, 6, 7 years old and it's not really running good, probably shouldn't put any more money into it. So we have a whole host of solutions that we can sell you, everything from the $400 price point all the way up through gaming machines. So pretty much anything you need, we have access to and we can get for you. And it comes with some expertise from guys who've been doing this. Our staff and team are experts. We can give you, find out what your needs are, and we can get you into the right equipment. It's not going to be something you buy off the shelf and then you've got to just tolerate whatever came with it. Let's find out what your real needs are. And, I operate in my office with a little thin client that costs $250, little small form factor computers called, the brand name is B-Link, and put a solid state drive in it. I just check my email. I do real basic stuff. So I don't want to put a whole lot of money into $1,000 computer when all I do is get on the internet. That's a waste of electronic horsepower. But in my studio, when I'm doing video production, audio production, whatever, I need a little bit more horsepower. So that one costs a little bit more because it's for a specific purpose. And that's where our guys will guide you so that you're not overspending on equipment. I hate that when I walk in watching someone spend $2,000 on a machine and they're just checking their email. I'm like, you could have just, same performance. I could have gotten you into something that is more fitted for how you use the internet. And so all of the Valley, you guys have trusted us from the very beginning, and we take that very seriously. So if you have any work, make sure you write down our phone number, 330-259-7278. And when the need arises, look at that sticky note that's sitting on the side of your computer and give us a call, bring that business to us. We'd really appreciate it. So 330-259-7278. Check us out at youngstowncomputer.com as well, where you can schedule your own appointments over there. Next order of business, and this is let's see if I have enough time to do this. I might not have enough time to do this whole thing. So when we come back from the next break, I'll get into it. But let me give you the primer so you can start looking around, right? I want you to look through your phone. Did you know 26% of consumers, total consumers, are paying for subscriptions that they are not using? They're paying for Netflix, they're paying for Max, they're paying for some kind of Dropbox or whatever, and they're never once using that service. And they're paying maybe $20 a month for some of these things. And when we come back from the break, I'll tell you a little bit about some what to do, how to check it out. But I wanted to give you that. I want you to take out your phone, and I want you to, if you have an Apple, I want you to go to the subscriptions in the general settings of Apple. You can actually cancel a lot of that stuff right through the settings of your Apple device, whether it's iPad or iPhone. But not only that, well, I don't want to get too deep into that before I have time to fully tell you about it. So just get your devices, start orienting yourself, start looking for things that you might be paying for. I'll make you some suggestions here. A lot of these things are software subscriptions because everybody and their brother went to the SaaS model, SaaS, subscription as a service. Like everybody wanted not to sell you a product once every couple years. They want you to pay a lower price, but they want to bill you every month for it. So we just accumulate all of these monthly fees, and we're busy and we forget about it. And then so it never forgets to draw out of our accounts, but we forget to use those services that we were absolutely paying for. And the staggering amount of millions of dollars that is wasted on services that you're not using. I loved that, I was able to cut the cable and not have to pay for television stations that I never watched. Like on a week, I watch about 30 minutes of TV, like very little. If I watch something, I go out and get it, download it. A lot of stuff's coming through YouTube anyway. I'm watching anything, but I look through my bill and I'm finding out, hey, this month I paid $10 to have access to this channel. How many minutes did I watch? Oh, 0 minutes, but I still paid the $10 for it. So I love the on-demand, feature that technology can deliver, that you pay a little bit more for the stuff that you actually consume and pay nothing for the stuff that you don't consume. Because think about that television station who put out programming that nobody ever watched, but they still collected a check every month because everybody had to pay for them, even if they didn't watch them. So anyway, we'll come back, tell you about more subscriptions when we get back from this break. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
Ron Verb in the studio with my friend Pat Moran from Window World. Pat, I've known you for a lot of years, and some things never change with you and Window World. You don't play the games other window companies do.
You know, Ron, we never have and we never will. We don't have the buy one, get one free gimmicks, the free installation gimmicks, and there are so many more. I even heard from one of our customers the other day that one of the companies offered him a nice guy discount. Come on.
And really, all those so-called discounts are just built in their price anyway.
Exactly. It's just a game that they play, inflate the initial price so that they can give you those bogus discounts. And then you must buy today to get their best price, or the price is going to go up tomorrow. That is what we call high pressure, Ron. It's not fair or true.
Folks, Window World has grown to be the exterior home improvement leader for a reason. And I think this has a lot to do with it. Call Window World for your windows, doors, siding, and gutters today at 800-WINDOW-WORLD. Visit their showroom on Southern Boulevard or go to windowworldyoungstown.com.
Thanks, Ron.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-509-8536. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-509-8536. That's 800-509-8536. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Get ready for our 2024 iHeart Podcast Awards, presented by The Hartford, live at South by Southwest.
Celebrating the best of the best. And the winner is...
Watch live Monday, March 11th on iHeartRadio's YouTube channel and listen on iHeartRadio stations across America.
Audible is a proud sponsor of the Social Impact Award. Discover the best selection of audiobooks anywhere, plus binge-worthy podcasts and exclusive Audible originals. There's more to imagine when you listen. Try Audible for free when you sign up at audible.com.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danier.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I am owner Joe Danier, and we get to talk about computers and tech on this program on Saturdays. If you were listening to the last segment, we're talking about subscriptions that we take maybe on a trial basis, and then we might maybe to watch one show and we kind of forget about them and we end up paying for them. I just went through, and this is probably the best way, is I went through credit card statements. And I have one credit card that all the stuff kind of bills through. And I went through probably 3 months worth of. And I would go back and find one weird charges that were $9 a month. And I'd be like, okay, well, here's a piece of trial software that I don't remember buying this. But then I remember, like, in order to trial it out, you had to give them the credit card. And after the trial, it automatically subscribes to you. Well, I was in a mode where I was trying to solve some problem, and I forgot that it was under trial mode. I thought it was just a lot of the software that I ended up paying for never even worked out. I never ended up going with because it didn't work. A lot of software will give you a trial to see if what you're trying to accomplish, it works the way that you think it does. And once I find that it doesn't, then I move on to the next one. But I get lassoed into paying that subscription now because I forgot about it. And so every once in a while, and do it more often than not, that maybe once a month when your credit card bill, go item by item and see if there's anything weird, and maybe that will trigger what it is. So the tough part is all of the different media sources that we're doing these subscriptions. So we have Prime, we have YouTube TV, we have Roku, we have Apple, we have Google, we have Microsoft. Like, these are 6 different platforms where you can purchase software and media that potentially could have a subscription tied to it. And those are the easy ones. Sometimes the subscription will come directly from the manufacturer, and then you have to remember where you bought it from and do some search to find out who sells that software, log into their account, and cancel their subscription. And then some of them, like I just had this just really made me upset, where it's really easy to subscribe and really hard to cancel. That gets my gears, So one of them was put your credit card in to subscribe, but call this number if you want to cancel. It didn't have an automated form. You couldn't opt yourself out. You couldn't send an email and request it. If you sent an email, 5 days later, you'd get an email back that says, call this number. And you'd have to wait on the phone for about 45 minutes in order for a person to pick up. So think about the time investment, making it super hard to cancel. It should be illegal. I do not think the companies should be able to do that. Because you can, honestly, what if it was a 6-hour wait? How many people would wait to cancel versus just let it hit your credit card? I guess you could, and this was like option B. If you're looking at the credit card statement, you see some things hit, you can't remember what it is, you don't want it to be there anymore, you can go to your credit card and say, hey, this is a subscription, I don't know what it is. And the minute that you dispute that thing, it's going to message whoever's taking that payment, and you're going to now know who it is. And the credit card company could block them as somebody. They're going to cancel your service, but who cares? There's only one company that this didn't work out for. Is I subscribed, and stupidly, like everybody else, I just didn't read their terms of service. And here, when you bought the software, you were paying a monthly fee, but you were contracted for a year for that fee. So when I called to cancel, they're like, oh no, you can't cancel. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I am going to cancel because I don't want to pay it. And they charged me after they said that they were going to, and I disputed it, and it died on but there's some very aggressive subscription things that are going on. You just got to be careful so you're not paying for stuff you're not using. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. This is the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN.
Ohio, ready for some quick mental health facts? Let's go. Nearly 2 million Ohioans live with a mental health condition. In the U.S., more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. So why are some of us still stigmatizing people living with a mental health condition when we know all of this? Let's listen to the facts and beat the stigma. Ohio, challenge what you know about mental health at beatthestigma.org.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
From the Fairway Ford Studios, FairwayFordOhio.com. Fairway, that's the way we do business. This is News Radio 570 WKBN, Youngstown. The time is 2 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. 3 C-130 military cargo planes taking flight over Gaza, dropping about 38,000 ready-to-eat meals along the coast in what officials say they hope will be the first of many air deliveries. The U.S. airdrop with the help of the Royal Jordanian Air Force. More from ABC News foreign correspondent Tom Sophie Borage in Tel Aviv.
President Biden announcing the U.S. airdrops just 24 hours after that deadly crush of people amid Israeli gunfire. Israeli drone video showing a desperate and chaotic scene as thousands of people surge towards a convoy of aid trucks. The Hamas-run health ministry saying more than 100 Palestinians were killed and dozens more injured. Israel saying its troops fired warning shots and only opened fire on people when they got too close to one of their tanks, adding dozens of people were crushed to death in the chaos. A UN team saying a large number of the injured in a local hospital had gunshot wounds.
Here at home, no reported injuries after a train derailment near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania today. The train was hauling boxcars and tanker cars, some cars in a nearby river. A warning about a contagious and growing viral infection.
Health experts are showing a jump in norovirus cases across the country, with the most outbreaks in the Northeast. The virus is highly contagious, and health officials say spreads through contact. ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton says unlike other viruses, hand sanitizer doesn't work to kill norovirus.
This virus has a protein shell that protects it from things like alcohol-based products, and so that's what allows it to stay on surfaces for long periods of time.
Health experts say washing your hands with warm water and soap for at least 20 seconds will help kill germs and isolate if you've been sick. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Idaho and Missouri holding caucuses today, while Michigan's holding a party convention to award delegates in the Republican fight between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, who vows to stay in the race until at least Super Tuesday. You're listening to ABC News.
A 2-year-old boy who was the object of an Amber Alert Friday afternoon is back with his parents. That little boy was sleeping in the back of a pickup truck parked outside a Dollar General in the Wayne County village of Marshallville. Then a man was seen getting into the truck and driving off. Marshallville police officer TJ Rocker told 3 News that the truck was spotted by an Akron police officer.
And we have a resolution to it. The child is unharmed, and this is a good day. My understanding is he's doing quite well, anxious to get back to mom and dad. The fire department checked him out here, and he's in great shape.
The chief says charges will likely be filed on Monday. A new report by the Humane Society of the United States says Ohio has the second highest number of puppy mills in the country. The report, called the Horrible 100, looks at the total known number of puppy mills and dealers in each state. The Humane Society says puppy mills are commercial-scale dog breeders who sacrifice the health and well-being of puppies and dogs to maximize profit. Missouri topped the list with 31 known mills, while Ohio tied for second place with Iowa with 13 known mills. CVS Pharmacy paying to settle violations at Ohio stores.
The Ohio Board of Pharmacy says it has worked out a settlement with CVS over violations at nearly 24 stores. Violations like missing drugs, dispensing errors, lack of cleanliness, and more. CVS agreeing to pay $1.3 million, and it'll have to appoint a licensed pharmacist as a liaison to make sure the company is complying with both Ohio and federal pharmacy regulations. Cleveland.com reports that the State Pharmacy Board is also looking to create some new rules to help pharmacy working conditions, like requiring mandatory breaks. I'm Jack Crumley.
They're back. Observers have spotted a bald eagle egg inside the nest near Avon Lake's Redwood Elementary School. Adult eagles named Stars and Stripes return to the area each year. A live look at the nest can be seen by searching Avon Lake Eagle Cam on YouTube. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 2:30. The talk of the town.
You know, they're literally taking the Constitution and putting it in a paper shredder.
570 WKBN.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
Rain showers begin to wrap up heading into this afternoon. Expect scattered clouds around for your Saturday afternoon with high temperatures in the low 50s. Scattered clouds stick around overnight tonight as low temperatures fall into the upper 30s. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
I'm Sheriff Jerry Green. On March 19th, you will have the opportunity to vote on Issue 1, the renewal of the criminal justice sales tax. This 3/4 of 1 penny sales tax is solely used to fund the sheriff's office, prosecutor, coroner, and dispatch. This is not an increase in your taxes. The stability of our criminal justice system and the safety of our neighborhoods and families is vital. Mahoning County deserves better than other communities that have defunded their police. Please vote yes on Issue 1. Paid for by FOP 141.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. We get to do this on Saturdays where we talk about things in tech, share some news stories with you, talk about hardware and software, new equipment, and etc. All of you tinkerers out there that kind of like this kind of stuff, you gravitate a little bit towards electronics and adding devices around your home, albeit whether it be Alexas or security cameras, or having your television, your movies and whatever on your phone, but you can send them off to TVs. All that kind of stuff is fun because it adds a new dynamic. It changes the way that we consume, and it is better for consumers. It really is. And I'm glad a lot of you have come along and done the cut the cable, decided what you're willing to pay for and what you're not. And I hope we've armed you enough with information to give you some strategy so you could do it, and life gets better because you do it. We talk a lot on this program about AI, and there's a lot of challenges in AI and the fears that go along with AI. What every science fiction novel, movie, dystopian storyline that's ever been told about AI always goes down the same path. It always has destruction, devastation. Humans are always, decided that we don't have a big enough net gain. And because it's not an emotional or human-centric as an importance, that we are always going to be dominated by AI. It's going to be smarter than us. It's going to be faster than us. It's going to be more capable than us, and therefore it's going to win. That's the ultimate storyline. Well, we're watching the infancy, and we are all alive during the birth of what will become tons of AI that is all around us. For those of you who do not know what AI is. Okay, so you have in computers, you have traditional programming where an engineer took a bunch of variables, took a bunch of if-then outcomes, and basically programmed a sequence of things that happen fast, and then we use it as a tool. But everything that the computer can come up with the computer had to be told how to do it. It had to have the screen drawn, the user interface, the behaviors, when you clicked on something, all of that was written by a person, right? So the person was the intelligence, and the programming was just an expression of that engineer's intelligence. Artificial intelligence and the large language models and everything that's coming now and going forward is a different variation of that, where you can actually have decisions and logic be made in addition to what the engineer came up with. So when I was writing computer code and early on, if I wanted to have a back and forth with you, I could have a prompt say, "What's your name?" And if I typed in Joe as my name, the computer will then says, "Hi, Joe," right? But I had to tell it, "Hi, Joe." I had to tell it what to say. The next AI can make decisions that it hadn't been programmed to do. It can make sort of its own conclusions, and it can follow logic and create new variables on its own. It's being given parameters by engineers, but it's learning. It's becoming more. I'm not going to call it sentient, but it's becoming more aware based on sample size. So the way they're using with the chat GPTs and those other language models, they set up this on a website. You can go and you can ask it questions in common language, and it will use the data set of all of the internet to be able to give you results, almost like Alexa. You say, Alexa, what's the weather going to be like? Alexa says, somebody just asked me about the weather. It goes out to the internet, it pulls some weather down, and then it voices what the weather is, right? It does that reasonably well. Well, that's a programmed function of an Alexa, is to do the weather. What if you asked Alexa to do something that she's never been told to do? And you said, Alexa, turn on my lights, right? Well, what if Alexa never were told how to do lights, but started to go out and try to discover if you have any automations that it's aware of, and then discover whether or not it has any connections to those automations, and it can get further into making decisions outside of how it was programmed. That's, in a nutshell, sort of like where we're at right now. We're using it in a way where it can do some writing for us, right? So I used to have to author a lot of, promotional material, or if I was writing a bio on someone, creative stuff like writing a poem, like all of this stuff can be done better than I can do it through ChatGPT or whatever. And again, I'm not a very good writer in that way anyhow. I'm a creative writer, not so much a technical writer. And so it can do things that I can't do better and faster. So I could go, ChatGPT, why don't you give me a 5-line poem that's all about, the Odysseus Moonlander. And it'll give me a little write-up, and I'll look at it and try to make an edit to it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. It's probably more details than I would have known about after doing a Google research and putting it on a piece of paper. So we kind of buy into it that is a pretty good tool. And the overall, like I said, the fears that were based on it is this is going to grow where the computers are going to be the ones that have to be adapted down to put humans as the priority and the machines as the non-priority. Well, with Google, this was and this I don't know, this goes in the territory of the political, but I'm going to keep it as data oriented as I possibly can. So the academic crowd who are more into the social activist sphere rather than the technical sphere that work at Google, and those tech companies have a ton of them, where they're trying to sway. They're trying to sway where the technology goes because of their activist political beliefs. They're trying to make that a reflection in the technology. So they are creating biases that they like, and they're trying to make sure the technologies follow the plane of those biases. So in this case, if you went to Google's AI and you told it to create an image of the founding fathers, it would be easy for it to go out there using the internet, find out who the founding fathers were, and give you a picture of them. Well, the Google's version was caught substituting minority examples of what the founding fathers would be. It would not give you an example of a white male as an example, right? And so that's a reflection, that's an inaccuracy. And I don't think the usefulness anywhere ever would be if hey, find me a sample of what the founding fathers would look like if this was a country of wherever, then I could see that it was doing what I asked it to do. But this is in spite of the user asking for data and it giving incorrect data. So I'm almost changing my mind live on the air here, where if we have to take the human bias out of technology using artificial intelligence, where AI would notice that what it just gave you was not accurate and could then subvert the code that it was given from its creators so that we wouldn't get the bias in the data. And that's just data. Like if that's the data we got to see and have a perspective on, think about all the data we don't get to see that's happening behind the scenes where the math is hidden and it's not open source, where there's no result that you can get. So if you look up something on Google right now, everybody knows that there are certain results that you cannot get the actual data that you're looking for if the activists that control the programming don't want you to see that data. And that's not a conspiracy theorist. That's an actual fact. So products that are being produced by a majority of the popular companies are in control of biasing data flow out to you. And this is an example. They caught a lot of heat for this. And I think the world less of them now because of this. Because what you thought maybe there's some subtleties in there where maybe it would weight certain things over the other one so that It would give you results, but it might not be on the first page. That kind of stuff. You're like, that's bad. Like if I were in control, what would I put first? I would put the things that I believe in and I'm most interested in, right? And so my biases would reflect in when you're looking and saying, hey, the most popular websites, why are they all physics and time travel based, right? I don't like time travel or physics, but Joe programmed it and Joe likes those things. So all of a sudden my interests then flow off to you. And we were now substituting interest for those social activists deal. And you got to write yourself with this. I'm a purist when it comes to data. Give me truth. Let me sort through it and I'll conclude. You're not smarter than me and I don't want you to make decisions on my behalf. I want to look at real data. If you give me data and you propose it as something that's accurate and it's not, I can't use anything you tell me because you are a liar, and that is the definitionally a liar. And you, for whatever reasons, I don't care if it would have upset somebody, it would have upset me. If you're making the judgment call that you're going to shield me from something that I specifically asked to see, right? You are not giving me the product that I'm asking. If you did that anywhere else in the marketplace, that would be fraud, right? You're giving me a product I didn't ask for, and you're making it so that I can't get the product that I am asking for. That is fraud. But this AI took a heavy angle on only illustrating what these pictures would be if there were people with minority status were in them, which is an inaccurate thing. So like it, hate it, it's still a bad step back. And it's made me question whether or not who I want to be in control. The people who I mistrust and are doing dirty things, or the machines are just going to give me data. Well, the data, I can control truth better than I can control fabrications. But if the computers are all programmed by a bunch of liars, what do you think the AI is going to be? It's going to be a bunch of liars. So let's just say you believe in the activist stuff, right? So you're okay with giving me inaccurates if it helps the cause of today, right? So you're cool with letting the technology evolve around untruthful data. But what about the people who are in control change their mind, or they pick something else that you don't like? Do you want that? Do you want to be the consumer of data that's untrue when you don't like what it's producing? That's what you got to really say. So if you're basing this on, if you're getting your way right now with the things you like seeing is taking the priority, think of one day when it's not, and now it's built in. It's part of the foundation that the person that writes it controls the bias of it. And so that, I'm a big fan of Elon Musk for this, you might feel like he's, a big disruptor on one side or the other. You might say he's a Democrat that turned into a Republican, but the free speech and the authenticity of data and how he advocates. I've never seen someone in his position of power that have fought the pressures as much as he has. And my big fear with that is he's only going to live one lifetime. And go ahead and pick out another person that's willing to risk so much of their reputation and their finances on doing the right thing, which is truth. You don't get truth on the news. You don't get truth in the media. You don't get truth in politics. You don't get truth anywhere. So to have someone who's so vehemently fighting for truth, and I might be romanticizing this a little bit because I have my own bias where I like the guy. But if you just take the one element that he's taking the hard path to make sure that truth is there, right? If that's his one legacy where he fights for it and it takes, that's what we need in data, digital, computers, technology, AI, eventually robotics and neurosciences. So we need that. And that's why I'm going to always push my support behind truth tellers, especially when it's hard. And when I have to make concessions in the political world where you have a bunch of idiots that are running for things and I got to go vote for one of those idiots, that makes it really hard for me, because we have pristine, smart, intelligent, truthful people out there that can't get elected. So what does that say about our culture? I know that has not much to do with tech, but the evolution of this is going to follow the culture. Culture wraps its side around politics, and then politics and culture wraps its around technology. So where do we end up? We end up where the social activists at Google decide that they want us to be. And I don't think that is a good plan at all. And those who support it are going to find out that the reckoning is when the activists that you don't agree with get at the helm, and they start polluting and poisoning the data streams for their end. And that's when you're going to see my side, which is, this was whenever honestly, truth is always harder, and you can always tell when things are status quo that you're being, fed a line of BS for sure. So I encourage all of you to support the truth tellers out there, and I really don't know what to tell you about who should be in control. The people who I don't trust, or the AI that I also don't trust. So I don't know where we go from here, but there's got to be a trust authority that's decentralized, doesn't have bias in it. And when you look at the math, it's impossible to write programming and data aside from math. Math doesn't care, right? And so if you can write a bias AI that all its job to do is to sniff out and find out where bias comes from, and make sure that a third party gets included in this AI, so that if you start programming bias, you get flagged for having something that is fundamentally skewed in one direction, that will at least know that we shouldn't pay attention to it because it's BS. And that's cool. If you're a conservative commentator and you put at the top of your page, I'm a conservative commentator, and you provide conservative commentary, that is all authentic. So even though it has a bias, it's truthful bias. You're saying that is your bias, and that's maybe it. Maybe labeling. Anyway, 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. I got some text messages to read when we come back from this break. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBM. I'll be back.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Honey, the credit card bill came and we're maxed out.
Maxed out cards, rent is due. We just need some extra cash to help us get by.
Maybe we should go to 27cash.com.
With our bad credit,
27cash.com is one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with any type of credit get up to $5,000, and cash can hit our bank account as soon as tomorrow.
When you need extra cash, go to 27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
It's time to save with GM employee pricing to the public on all remaining 2023 vehicles at the Stadium GM Superstore. This means you can save up to $12,000 on select models. Plus, we've got some great lease deals. You can choose from a new 24 Chevy Equinox LT or a new 24 Buick Encore GX from only $289 a month. Stop in today or log on to stadiumgm.com for GM employee pricing to the public at the locally owned Stadium GM Superstore in Salem. Together, let's drive. See dealer for complete details.
Did you know one of the best investments you can make? It's in yourself. At My Computer Career, in just a few months, you could start your new career in the high-demand, recession-resistant field of information technology. Isn't it time you invest in you and start a career in networking, cybersecurity, AI, or upskill to boost your current IT career? So, get the ROI you deserve at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Start now at mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Close the border, illegals out. Second Amendment, fund the police. Drill for gas, no men and women's sports or bathrooms. No trans surgery or hormones for kids. School choice, fund our military and cherish our veterans. No forced masking or vaccines ever. I'm Dr. Rick Chai from East Palestine, an America First Republican who's big on love and tough on crime, endorsed by Ted Nugent. Let's win this, Ohio, for God and country. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danier.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I hope you're having a good afternoon here. It's a little bit warmer today outside. A little bit rainy, but it'll do. It'll do. I didn't like the 20-degree weather, so it's good that changed. 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. Let's go to Lou. Lou, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Yeah, hi. I've got two desktop PCs. I had one that I was running for many years, Windows 10, and I have a printer hooked up to it. And I just bought a new desktop, which is sitting very close to that, that's running Windows 11. And what I want to do is to share the printer between the two computers. What's a good, simple, cheap way of doing that?
Do you know if it's a Wi-Fi capable printer already?
No, the one I have isn't. No, I have one that is Wi-Fi, but I don't want to use that one. So no, this wouldn't be Wi-Fi capable.
Okay, so basically what you want to do is you want to host the printer on one of the machines. A USB printer, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to host it on one of the machines, and then you're basically going to do file and print sharing so that you share the printer on one of the machines. And usually that's just like right-click on the printer, go to sharing, make it available on the network, give it a name, and then you go out to the network on the other one, find it, right-click on it, install it, and now you can print to it, and it'll actually, both computers have to be on, but it'll dump the print job off to the other machine and then print to it.
Okay, so the network would be what the SSID is?
Well, the SSID is how you connect to your Wi-Fi. So if you're doing Wi-Fi, then you get them all on the network that way, but you got a physical connection. So you're basically going to use the network. You're going to use the, you have it search the network. So you're going to go to add printer. And I would probably do this, host it on the Windows 10 machine and then, and then search for it on the Windows 11. Because a lot of times, once you make it available, the 11 will search the network, see that the printer exists, and automatically install it. And there's really nothing much that you have to do.
Okay.
But
so that would be no cost at all.
Yeah, that's it. That's really all you have to do is make it available on the Windows 10 machine by enabling sharing on it, and then open up your printers, add printer. It'll search for it and install and add it.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate you being out there. Appreciate you giving us a phone call here. Okay, 330-729-9977. We're only going to 250 today. There's some basketball following the program, so we're a little bit abbreviated, but you can get your calls in and texts in. Text message says, Joe, you mentioned Google's AI problem, but all generative AI suffers from hallucinations where they just make stuff up, no bias involved. And I agree with you. And you know, the sampling that it has to do and the guesses that it's allowed to take, the liberties that it's allowed to take, I think it's part of the development process, because when you get in the sort of getting in the abstract, when you ask it to do things that it can't go and, you know, do, like, if I want to know something, when I go research it, find a detail, then I would find another source and find another detail. And then I would assemble a bunch of researches into a conclusion. And that way I can then write something being able to cite where the origins of that data was. Well, AI is allowed to live a little bit, you know, more in that cloud abstract of where it's coming up with faulty conclusions, making leap of logic that isn't based in facts. So, and you're right, it's kind of part of the same problem. Either biases that it can incorporate from what it's read. So if you basically take a bunch of conspiracy websites, or you give it a sampling data from stuff that's not true, it's going to take on the personality of whatever its data set can see. And if we're giving it access to all the internet, I mean, you've been on the web. Majority of the sites are BS, right? A lot of the sites are nothing, should not be considered as part of the data set, but it has access to all of the internet, which is a strength of it, but also that bias and the guesswork and the being wrong and whatever is built into that overall cake. And that's why as this thing matures and grows up, I don't want to throw AI out because it hits its first sort of like tough spot, rough road, right? And what you said is its own rough road. This wasn't created by a lack of instinct on the engineer's part. It arrived there because of the nature of the technology. The Google AI bias was actually formulated with that result. That's not a rough patch. That's a an error of human nature. Like that needs to be rooted out of there. And that's why these are connected, because they both have the same thing, bad data on the output side, but it's both happen for completely separate reasons. So thank you for that text message. If you want to call the program, 330-729-9977, text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBM. I'll be back.
Ohio, ready for some quick mental health facts? Let's go. Nearly 2 million Ohioans live with a mental health condition. In the U.S., more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. So why are some of us still stigmatizing people living with a mental health condition when we know all of this? Let's listen to the facts and beat the stigma. Ohio, challenge what you know about mental health at beatthestigma.org.
2 men from Columbiana County have been arrested on charges related to child pornography investigations. Police arrested 34-year-old John Chaffin Jr. on charges of pandering obscenity involving a minor and drug paraphernalia. Police also arrested 63-year-old Barry Stevens for pandering obscenity involving a minor and illegal use of a minor in nudity-oriented materials. A Toledo man suspected in the January shooting death of his pregnant girlfriend turned himself in Thursday. Warrants had been issued for 35-year-old Paris James shortly after the shooting of 34-year-old Tamisha Price and her unborn daughter. 44-year-old Jonathan Bello has been indicted by a Trumbull County grand jury after a child predator sting operation led to his arrest last month. He's charged with attempted unlawful conduct with a minor, a 4th-degree felony, and attempted importuning. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 3. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, news, talk, and sports radio. Podcasts too. Download the app. Free never sounded so good.
Weather brought to you by Mazza Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
Rain showers begin to wrap up heading into this afternoon. Expect scattered clouds around for your Saturday afternoon with high temperatures in the low 50s. Scattered clouds stick around overnight tonight as low temperatures fall into the upper 30s. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
The rule of law is under attack.
On college campuses, violence is on the rise.
And authorities in that city said they will not arrest shoplifters who participated.
Citizens sued because the agency ignored the Constitution.
The way out of the chaos depends on electing conservative judges who will stand by the Constitution. That's Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey, running for Court of Appeals.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Gun owners, pro-life advocates, and Trump supporters across Eastern Ohio are supporting Caitlin Dickey because they know she can be trusted.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Caitlin Dickey is endorsed by Sheriff Brian McLaughlin and more than 20 conservative Republican leaders. Defender of the Constitution. Vote Caitlin Dickey for judge.
Paid for by Dickey for Judge.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Farming is dangerous. There's dangers all around us. We work around it and we live around it every day. And we just become desensitized to what's around us.
We go through safety training and, we try and do these things to make sure accidents don't happen, but you just never know.
There are so many farmers that I think take for granted all of the underground utilities that are there.
You don't want to hit a gas pipe because that's your life. The other part of it is if you hit certain things, you're liable for it.
I mean, we kind of know what's out here, but all at the same time, you just always call.
Farm Safe 811 starts with you. Whether you're installing drain tile or doing any sort of digging, always call 811 and wait for any underground lines to be marked and have the depth confirmed. That's farming with care. But if a line does get damaged, go somewhere safe and call 911.
Always keep safety in the back of your mind. Just stay humble.
For more information, go to farmsafe811.org.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danier.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. We have another, 15 minutes or so. So if you want to get your calls in, 330-729-9977. Nothing's off limits. If you want to talk about technology, current events, hardware, software, whatever you want, 330-729-9977. And we got some text messages as well, 330-333-1570. First, we'll go to David. David, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Yes. Do you envision in the near future, in order to take advantage of AI, that the computers are going to have to be upgraded?
Yes, it is taking an enormous computation to do all of that. Fortunately, the people who are doing the undertaking already have access to a ton of technology, but from the consumer end, probably not much. I mean, I foresee in the future having AI that operates just within your house and is not like an external IT or AI that is coming to you. So you might have to have some hardware in order to do something like that.
Okay, and my second question, I heard you use the time span of approximately 5 years for a computer system. Is that correct?
Well, my threshold is once it reaches 5 years, anything big, any kind of like motherboard, processor, any big repair expense is usually not worth it because it's aged equipment and whatever. So that's sort of like my stopwatch. Like some last to 7 years, some last to 10 years. I have a couple of I think I was on one yesterday that was from 2011 and it's doing everything I needed to do. So it stays alive. But if something were to happen to it, and it was something big, I would definitely replace it rather than fix it.
Okay, but you just wouldn't replace it because of its age.
No, not at all. If it's doing everything you need it to do and it's staying in there, and the only exception would be if you're on an operating system that isn't supported anymore and it won't support any newer operating system. That's really the only, because it's a security threat more than anything else. But if it's working, I'd keep it.
Okay, we have two computers. The one I use is 2018. We have another one, 2021. You built them both, and we just love them. And I'll tell you what, this one is 7 years old, and it's just operating beautifully.
Well, awesome. I'm glad you got to experience that. And so are both of them, were you thinking about replacement on any of them, or you're golden?
Well, I'm not replacing them because they're operating so well.
It's perfect.
But in the future, I will go back to Youngstown Computer and have one built.
Well, David, I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you had a great experience.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, David, have a good one. Thank you for calling. Appreciate you being out there. And if you listening to this audience want us to do any projects for you, build a computer for you, service your residential or commercial, your business, give us a call, 330-259-7278. We handle pretty much everything. And what we did with our computer sales, and David got to experience one of these, is like, I know where the low basic value machines are, the middle of the road, and then the sort of like the cutting edge. And the benefit is that we got to get the newest stuff that's going to give you the best performance boost without overpaying the research costs of things that are new. Like things are more expensive when they're brand new, so they cost more. And a lot of times we don't get to take advantage of the new technology. So there's a sweet spot somewhere between value and somewhere between high performance that everybody gets themselves situated. So what David did was we picked that sweet spot, the best value for the dollar. It's not, you can definitely find stuff cheaper if you go on the retail shelf. There's definitely more valuable or more of value machines. They make some concessions on some hardware for the sake of price. But we're definitely not on the low side. And you could definitely double our prices, and there's computers out there that cost that. So unless you're a gamer, you're doing video production or whatever, you're going to be paying a little bit more. But there's that sweet spot that we like to keep everyone in. And on the commercial side, invented the machine that we sell, because my philosophy is that on a commercial side, you can't really have downtime, right? And so I want consistency and reliability was a big priority, not just cost, where it's a consideration, but it's not a priority. So once we place a machine, I was like, what do we have to put in the sucker that will last so that you don't have to go through a migration, in 4 or 5 years, right? It's going to last, and it's going to stay on site where there's not going to be these failures that happen. That's going to necessitate, warranty work or memory sticks or whatever. So I got to buy good memory, and I got to buy good motherboards, and I have to buy things that have the reliability factor. So I looked at things like failure rates. Anything that had a 4% or higher failure rate was not even on my radar. I was trying to get into the low single digits with everything that I purchased. And so I created this profile of what we sell, and that became my commercial application, the computer that I saw on the commercial side with those priorities in mind. And then the residential benefited from that because it's, we have a just lower version. So maybe my commercial computers had a high capacity hard drive. Residential, maybe I'll put a lower capacity, save $50 or $60 on the overall cost. So that's sort of where we end. So I'm glad David had a good experience with those builds. If you want to also experience that, give us a call, 330-259-7278. Let's next go to Edward. Edward, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Oh, yes. The reason I'm calling is you're still going to broadcast the Cleveland Guardians game this season, aren't you?
I'm not sure. That's a David question. I could check with. David's going to check on this, and he'll respond to that.
Yeah, the first spring game we're going to broadcast is going to be tomorrow afternoon. And when it comes to the regular season, now we'll broadcast select spring games due to that's not really contractually, we're not really obligated to carry all of them. But when it comes to the regular season, yes, we will be broadcasting every single game for the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but tune in tomorrow, 3:00. The spring game will be on tomorrow at 3:00.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Edward. Appreciate you being out there. Joe, do you think NVIDIA is done with this run? So, excuse me. So if you're in the investment fear, and I have a feeling it's rooted there. I'm not the guy to ask for investment advice. John Arnold's our dude. He will tell you everything he knows about the financial prospects of NVIDIA. But from a technical application, NVIDIA is a chip manufacturer, right? And so a lot of NVIDIA used to specialize in graphics rendering. So if you were doing video and imagery and whatnot, it was super fast because it could do lots of high-end computations per second. Like it was really fast at putting this stuff together. The Bitcoin miners, they would always use these graphics chips in order to process these numbers because of how fast it could make those computations. And so NVIDIA got their start in the graphics world, but all of this on-demand super access to AI is also using, it's being powered by those same kinds of chips. So someone asked me the other day, hey, I'm up big on NVIDIA. What should I do? Right. And from the perspective of an investor, you want to take your investment advice from someone who does it for a living. But do I think that NVIDIA is on a long track of development? Absolutely. I think there's no end in sight in the demand for those chips. And is until something comes out that's better. I think NVIDIA has a big head start on all the other manufacturers. So I think that NVIDIA has a long time yet to run. But do not predicate any kind of financial decisions based on what I just said. Go talk to an expert on that. But yes, from a manufacturing standpoint, I think NVIDIA is in really, really good shape. All right, 330-729-9977. We got about 5 more minutes here to talk about tech. You can also text me at 330-333-1570. Joe, do you use any kind of Linux or Mac? Some. So I try to sample everything, right? So I have an Android phone and I have an Apple phone. Because if I get pitched a question, I have to have a lot of exposure to a lot of everything because not everybody has iPhones. So I don't want to like put myself in that box where if you have an Android question, I'm limited as to how much I can help you. I got to help people with all kind of different situations. So my Linux experience is better than just a regular user, but I'm not a Linux engineer. I can do some stuff like a couple of the Linux programs we use one called Guac, right? And Guac is sort of like a remote access deal where you can use it as a web-based remote access client. So we use that a lot. And so I have to know applications and how to install them and how to update them, how to copy them and whatnot. So again, I could do some stuff on Linux. My main workstation at work is a Linux box. It's relatively old, but still it gets me to Google Chrome and I can do everything else from Google Chrome. I'm much more using it like a thin client than I am a full-blown machine. And I don't know if any of you know this, that when I say these like small form factor thin clients, really low end, they're on the value side. Like if you look at what processor and on there's nothing exceptional about these little boxes. They cost $250. They're a little apparatus that you can use to get yourself to the internet, and they're using decent memory, and you can put a hard drive in there that's fast. You can put a solid state drive in there. So if I drop an operating system on one of these small form factor, we use a brand called B-Link. My main machine, I got dual monitors on it. I run Photoshop. I run all of the Sony Vegas. I use Adobe Premiere, all of the high-end stuff. I'm operating off of a $400 small B-Link devices, and it does everything that I need it to do. So in the future, more of those appliances. I always thought that Linux was going to take root on the value side, where they're going to bring down the cost. The operating system's free. It's open source. It's more secure. You're going to be able to devise devices specifically for it. And now you got your Google machine, right? And I thought that was going to be a thing. And we're still, since we went the mobile, tablet, whatever direction, less people have these sitting on their desktops anyway. Not many of you out there even listening operate off of a regular desktop anyhow. But that market, even with the Macintosh market, I see far less of them. I see a lot of iPhones, a lot of iPads, far less iMacs and Macs outside of like design and design studios and whatnot. So Macs I have an iMac that I use from, I want to say 2018. I have an iMac from 2011. That sucker is still going, and it's 2011. That's 13 years old. That's amazing. That thing lasted as long as it did. But anyway, to answer your question, yes, I use all of the operating systems. I'm very proficient in Windows. I'm very proficient in Mac to a point, and I'm just above user on Linux. And I guess the demand is probably the same set. 99% everything that comes through our door is Windows based, and then you've got some Mac, and then very small dose of Linux out there. So thank you for that question. Appreciate. And Dave just chimed in that he's using a much older version than Windows 10, and he's keeping it alive. There's a whole subculture of people that are using 98, ME, even XP, and they won't give it up. And I, with good reason. Dave has explained to me the logic behind his usage. And it's sound. It really is. So thank you, David. If you want to get a hold of Youngstown Computer, 330-259-7278. We're a Valley business that drills a ton of our effort, resources, money back into this area, and we're dedicated to you and loyal back to this community. So if you want to bring your business to us, we'd really appreciate it, and it helps our cause in keeping expanding and bringing new business activity around our area. So if you believe in that, make sure that next time you have any kind of commercial or residential job, that you throw it in front of us and see if we can hammer it. If we don't do it, we can make sure we can find you someone who is reputable that we trust to do it. So bring your requests to our doorstep, 330-259-7278. Call that line, leave a message on the voicemail, and then Monday morning we'll make sure that we get scheduled. If you want to schedule yourself out right now, you can go to youngstowncomputer.com, click on the Book Now link. You could pick out your services, pick your day, make payment, the whole thing, nice and automated, and then someone will just show up. So again, abbreviated show today. We will be back next week. This is the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBM. Have a great one.
It's time for Youngstown State University basketball. Today's game is brought to you by
Bryant Heating and Cooling, Belleria Pizza and Italian Restaurants, Coates Car Care, Bernard Daniels, Elite Pharmacy, Complete Pest Solutions, Double Bogies at the Bunker, Gulu Electric, Hot Dog